Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien versus Predator Galaxy podcast. This is episode 145, and I'm regular host Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks. And joining me, as always, are my partners in crime.
Adam Zeller, aka RidgeTop.
AJ Bischoff, aka Voodoo Magic.
That's
JV,
you, David.
aka Omega.
It's fine, we'll roll with it.
And Eric Adams, aka Xenomorphine.
And purely because I do not want to re-record that, we will carry on.
Eric's
With-
still hiding in the dark.
I am.
Yes. So
Okay,
for the
let's
for the video listeners, video watchers, sorry, Eric's using his AI persona, and this is going to be an absolute nightmare for me. Look at how many hosts we have here. There's 5 of us. I can't remember the last time we did
Yeah,
one
it's
this
been a
big.
while.
Well, considering the production we're going to be talking about, it's kind of suitable in a way.
So because of Alien 3 being a nightmare, I
Ah.
have to have a nightmare doing the edit of the podcast. Is that what you're telling me, Eric?
Yeah, it was a bit of a production kerfuffle, I think it's fair to say.
I
A
don't
lot
feel
of
like
cooks in the kitchen, you know.
I don't like that mirror. I've got to be honest, guys. But yes, so we are talking Alien 3, a absolute disaster, a misunderstood masterpiece. We'll find out how we all feel about it on this episode. So, all being well, I'm aiming to drop this on the film's 30th anniversary, which is
35th
22nd?
anniversary.
30th,
30th?
1992.
Oh,
30th.
damn. I can't count either.
Yeah. And I think next year will be the anniversary of the assembly cut, because that was
2003, yeah,
Three,
Christmas
yeah.
time, yeah.
Wait a minute. So we're only covering the theatrical cut?
No, we're talking to this heavily as well. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Because we had to talk about how much Alien 3 we're going to talk on this Alien 3 retrospective. Eric likes to call these debates, and I'm like, we're not arguing. It's a retrospective discussion.
Yeah.
I say we're not arguing. We'll find out as we rock on and see what opinions clash.
You know, guys, to toast Alien 3, I got myself a little leftover Bishop here. A little synthetic. It was dripping all over the film, and happy anniversary, Alien 3.
I'll toast to Alien 3. I started the whole Japanese beer
Oh,
tradition
I'm
that
on the
Aaron
I'm on the
sometimes
Japanese.
has
Yeah,
got, so
to be fair, lots of Japanese text and kanji and stuff in the background of Alien
they
3.
did. They boosted that a bit. Kind of felt a little Blade Runner-y, honestly.
Although, you know what? Just to go off topic already, I just finished watching season 2 of Raised by Wolves. So when AJ raised the milk, I'm thinking, ooh, Lifeblood.
Yeah, I still need to finish season 1. I got about halfway through it, and I was into it. I just got distracted. But does it keep up? Season 2 is good.
Oh, I'm really enjoying it. But we can talk about that on next week's stream. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so as we like to do with these things, I thought we'd start off with just the first time we saw the film. It is how we handle these, and it's how we'll crack on with today. So we'll go alphabetical again, and I'll go last after. So a roundabout alphabetical.
Wait,
So
but you're
Adam,
first alphabetical.
no, so Adam, you go first. I'll go
Okay,
last.
so when I was finally old enough to watch R-rated movies, I guess, I had some experience with Alien, with the video games, with the toys, with the comics. Like, I had seen some stuff, but I was getting to the age in my early to mid-teens where my parents would allow me to watch the movies, and I was like, I'm going to watch them all. And for some reason, I watched the second one first, and then I went back and watched the first one. I remember like a local VHS rental store at my grocery store that was like maybe a mile or so away from me. So I would just ride my bike there and rent movies. And I rented, I think Alien and Aliens first, and then 3 and Resurrection. And I remember watching 3 and just being, I feel like a lot of people were just really disappointed with it at first, because coming off the high of Aliens, and that was such a fun, intense film, even though it did maintain the horror elements, I thought, like, we had 3 survivors at the end, and we had really grown to love these characters, and we were very much interested to see what would happen to them next. And so I was reading a Reddit post recently that was saying somebody was watching the theatrical cut of the film, and they were saying, I could never really get over the deaths of Hicks and Newt. I could never stop grieving about those. And the new characters were not compelling enough to get me past that. And I very much agree with that. I think the assembly cut remedied that a bit more, a lot more, actually. But I have to say, I was quite disappointed with the film at first. But through the years, as I got older, I gained more of an appreciation for the movie, and I really like it now. I still feel that it has problems. I still feel that none have come to the quality of the first two movies, but there's things Alien 3 does so well in terms of the production design, in terms of the creature effects, in terms of just the vibe and the movie having its own feel and identity. The score is incredible. There's so many things Alien 3 does right, and it is a very, very worthy Alien film. Um, I just don't know if I'll ever feel it was what we wanted after Aliens. Regardless of that, it's a very dark, very nihilistic film, and you have to kind of admire it for that because I don't think they'd make a movie like that now. I was listening to the commentary recently, and I remember Lance Henriksen chimed in. He was like, I don't know who I was supposed to care for in this movie. It was all just a bunch of murders on a prison, and it's the same thing. Like the one character I care about, Clemens, right after his kind of heartfelt diving into his past, he's killed off. And so even a character we're starting to connect with like that, it's like, no, fuck you. Like he's dead too. And so the movie's just so nihilistic in that sense, but it's uh, it was a disaster, but it was a beautiful disaster. And I feel like the movie um was sabotaged by too many cooks in the kitchen, was sabotaged by the studio. I feel like if you would have let Fincher pursue his vision, it goes to say, you know, it's a good warning for studios to be careful how you treat a new and upcoming director because you don't know what his future is going to be. So I do feel like they should have trusted Fincher a bit more with this film. Because the theatrical cut, I watched them both again recently. I almost never watch the theatrical cut now. And I don't feel there's really anything the theatrical cut does that's superior to the assembly. Um, but overall, I really like the film. It's It'll never be with the first two for me. None of them will, but I really like the film and I really admire the film and what they were doing and some of the new ground they broke with the franchise. So those are pretty much my thoughts on it.
Are we giving it a score?
Alien 3 would be a hard one to score.
Did we score the others?
I think I remember scoring Aliens on the anniversary for that.
Well,
So
if you want to, AJ, feel free to. If anybody wants to, feel free to.
I would say for the theatrical, probably a 6, and for the assembly, probably an 8.
okay.
Over to you then, AJ.
So with Alien 3, I don't have clear memories of exactly when and where I saw it, like with Aliens. I mean, it was in 1992. It was a rental. The movie came out in summer, right? Or in May of 1992.
End of May.
Yeah, the end of May. And I think the video cassette came out the end of that year. And I was able to watch it. And man, I remember looking forward to seeing it. Seeing Sigourney Weaver's shaved head was cool. It might have been a bald cap in the adverts. I'm not sure, but seeing those like black and white newspaper ads, coming to a theater soon, and I was excited, because after Alien and Aliens, my favorite Alien film, who wouldn't be excited in 1992 to see the next film in probably the highest praised sci-fi horror film franchise at that time. But I think my memory is muddled for me Not so much because how younger I was, not because it's been 3 decades, but because of the film's impact on me. I went into Alien 3 as an Alien fan, and I came out as one of those alienated fans. I mean, here's this young mind expecting a follow up to this perfect 1979 Alien film and the equally perfect 1986 Aliens. And here, right, was this choppily paced third film that basically said, fuck you, I'm pulling an Aaron, fuck you to the lore, you know? It said, fuck you to the second film, the characters, their arcs, the growth. And that wasn't fun to see. And I don't know. And Alien 3 seemed to also kind of say screw off with the logic, with the xenomorph logic, you know? Where did that extra facehugger come from? Where did that extra egg come from? Who cares? You know? Who cares? The dog was facehugged after Ripley was facehugged and burst in rapid time. But Ripley could go on and on and on with a chest buster inside her, only making her ill at, you know, contrived times where she can hardly move, just to reveal to the audience she was impregnated, only to bounce back up again and become a stud action heroine again. And these contrivances, right? Like no weapons cache in a maximum security prison full of psychopaths, murderers, and rapists, because, you know, in Sigourney Weaver's contract, there was, you know, no guns. You know, it even hurt my sensibilities back then. And hardly anything of that movie felt organic, but it all felt like staged sequences without considerate thought. And how do I care for a bunch of rapist murderer villains with no character development? Most of them, right? To little to no character development, that all look the same with their shaved heads, so much that they remind you of those red shirted nameless security guards on Star Trek. You know, disposable. But as time went by, and the assembly cut was revealed, you know, adding scenes and allowing the film to breathe, and learning about all the behind the scenes nightmares and production beginning even without a finished script, my heart softened a little towards Alien 3, and I started appreciating some aspects. Sure, the script was still often contrived, and in some aspects, you know, still a mess. But like Adam said, you know, or near to what Adam said, it's a beautiful mess. And there was great cinematography, a very often enchanting score. Sigourney Weaver's performance was very enjoyable, as always. Charles S. Dutton was simply wonderful as Dylan. And I thought the runner was very cool, even though the effects were rough. I mean, really rough at times. And its behavior wasn't always logical, but it was still cool. And I enjoyed the more religious aspects, even in the assembly cut. So, and you know what? To be honest, I think Alien Resurrection even helped me enjoy Alien 3 more too. You know, it was like Resurrection was like, you know, you think Alien 3 is bad? Hold my beer, you know? Um, is Alien 3 a masterpiece? No, it steps below that. It steps below the first two films in every way. But I've grown to like it for what it is. And, you know, I understand to some hardcore fans out there, it's their favorite. and they're probably seething at me, but I got nothing but love towards them. I just don't have love towards this film. But I've grown to like it. So the theatrical cut, I'd give it a 5. Alien 3 assembly cut, I'd give it a 7. And I'd still like to say hashtag Newt lives.
You always liked that hashtag, didn't you? You and
I
Eric,
do.
actually. Yeah.
I do.
Right, David. Bring me the tea, David. Take it
The
away.
what?
Bring me the tea. Alien Covenant.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so my learning curve with the movie, I'm gonna say it's very similar to what Adam said, because I watched it first when I just fresh of Aliens, and I was thoroughly disappointed with the way the story went, starting from the cactus from the previous movie dying. So I wasn't very fond of it, and I wasn't very fond of Alien Resurrection either. But growing up and changing my tastes a little bit, mm, getting into more mature kind of movies, um, dealing with kind of subtle, dark, uncomfortable themes. I realized that Alien 3 is mood-wise very interesting to look at, because it's essentially a metaphor of some sort of post-stress traumatic disorder, represented by the alien, with Ripley surviving, what could be like a car crash. It's essentially a car crash at the start of the movie where your family is killed and you have to deal with the fact that you are the only one who survived. And it's a very interesting look at the movie that way. With that said, I'm not very fond of certain aspects of the movie still. My running joke with whenever I see Charles Dance in a movie is that I call him Clemens. Look, there's Clemens whenever I see him, because I very much like that character. And he gets killed like way too soon for some reason. And he's replaced by nobodies basically, because most of the characters are kind of average criminal Joes, things like that. So, for example, I feel that he should have been the one, releasing Ripley at the end, not like Morse. Is that his name? Yeah, Morse. Um, I'm a very big fan of the creature, of course. The ADI alien, especially the Rod Puppet version. As very, very interesting ideas implemented into it. The proportions, the blade at the end of the tail gets, more into that butcher blade AvP direction, which I honestly kind of like. So yeah, there's a lot of things I could like about the movie. I could say I'm very good about the movie, and at the same time, there's things holding it back. But it's kind of like an old friend to me, as in you accept their defects because their history, and it's not like they're invalidating issues. You can still be friends, things like that. So I don't like number ratings, but if somebody were pointing their space gun at me and saying, give me a fucking number rating, I'd say the theatrical cut around an 8 and the assembly cut around the same, um, rating, because I feel like the assembly cut kind of fixes some problems but introduces new ones. So yeah, there's that.
Okie dokie, Mr. Xenomorphin. Old boy, you probably saw it in the cinema, didn't you?
No, Resurrection was the first one I saw at the cinema with friends. Alien 3, if memory, 92. I would have been in high school. And back then, let me see. It was me and 2 or 3 other friends. A lot of the time we were rewatching Aliens that was often what we went round to each other's houses to do, and we just watched Aliens. We were like, what should we do? Watch Aliens. Yeah. Because it's a genuinely good film. And we didn't fast forward to where the big action scenes are. We watched the whole thing. And a lot of people forget it's like an hour or so before the action kicks in. You got tension, you got momentum, you've got inertia, you've got, I mean, almost right from the start, as soon as Ripley finds out about families, Jesus, you know the direction it's heading. She's off to face her demons down. It's not just because it's a crowd pleaser, but it's got that sense of direction. And the series, up until then, it felt as though, like in car terms, there's a new car. It's come out of the garage. It's like in Back to the Future, where the DeLorean comes out of the trailer. And in Aliens, that car sets off on a racetrack, on a motorway, and they let the engine rip. It's what they call a roller coaster. And you get to Alien 3, and the problem is that in almost every respect, it feels like it's treading water. The characters don't know what they're doing, where they're going to go, how they're going to get out of it. Let's make a plan. The plan falls apart. Oh, well, I want to die anyway. There's no hope. A lot of people think that's a good thing. Me and my friends, though, we just thought, this just feels so underwhelming. Because with Aliens, what you used to at that time were they wanted to survive. They wanted to go on. They wanted to fight to get out of it. They had a cause, a sense of purpose. Even Burke, bastard that he was, he had a sense of purpose. In Alien 3, and I'm sure at the time it was done just to be different. I believe that in the meeting Sigourney Weaver had, the first one she had with David Fincher, she said, where do you feel Ripley is heading? Because she said she wanted to know if this guy got Ripley, because she said, well, he's going to be stuck with Ripley whether he likes it or not. And he said, how do you feel about Ripley being bald? And Sigourney Weaver, being an actor, performance, art-led, she said, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. But it's like they have these ideas, oh, that sounds interesting, but where's it going to go in the narrative? She's bald because she's bald. All the characters are bald, which psychologically, and I remember this at the time, we were like going, who's got killed? Who was that? Wait, what? But I thought that guy was talking. Wait, huh? We were, who's died? Nobody cares. Nobody really gets called by name often, very much. And unless someone's got an American accent, which is interesting because most of them are British actors, you're like, well, what do I remember that character doing? I don't know. And I remember there were reviews at the time where people were saying people in the audience were actually starting to root for the alien. You don't have this sense of you want the character to live. It was like AJ said, they're all red shirts. Nobody cared about the characters. Nobody was bothered beyond, well, maybe this kill will be an interesting kill. But even the kills were very, bam, the alien rushes off. It wasn't interesting. I remember we talked about, because we were all basically very underwhelmed when we saw it. It got to Ripley's suicide, the credits ran, and me and my friend looked at one another and we were like, oh, well, that's that then, I guess. You didn't have that, wow, I've seen an alien film. Like, at that point, an alien film stood for something. It had that breakthrough of that, and of course, Predator started to, but Predator 2 hadn't come out by that point. The alien films where they made the breakthrough of, it was no longer a guy in a rubber monster suit. the Alien films made the alien look and feel like a living creature. The alien had a presence. And in Alien 3, you had that big problem of, well, if you're not going there to see Ripley's journey, then you're going there to see a monster killing people and that. And the effects were famously so bad that these days people go, oh, the CGI in Alien 3 was awful. And there's only like a fraction of a second of actual CGI in it. It was Jurassic Park came out the following year. That was the first time they'd done proper organic CGI. In this one, it was all to do with bad, well, not practical effects. The rod puppet actually looks really good. The rotoscoping and all that, it was not conducted in a manner where you thought that's a real creature. It looked fake. Like with Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future 2, number 2, and the shark hologram comes out and it's Jaws 15 or whatever, and he goes,
19.
oh, the shark still looks fake. That's what you got with Alien 3. The alien looks fake. And that was such a disappointment for fans of the alien creatures, because, yeah, it's Ripley's story, but, like, she's there incidentally. It's called Alien, Aliens, Alien 3. And if the creature, your willing suspension of disbelief crumples, you got a problem. And okay, if you're going to go that direction, at least maybe there's going to be some really disturbing stuff, some psychosexual stuff, like with Lambert, or the scene where Ripley and Newt are trapped with these face huggers. You can have all sorts of stuff happen. And all the alien does is just rush around. It becomes a slasher. It's that problem with, like, Pinhead and Freddy Krueger. Eventually, they just run around killing people. They're on drugs almost. They don't care about making the confrontations disturbing. The most you got with that was famously, I remember the big thing about Alien 3 was you had all these billboards of the famous image with Ripley almost shitting herself and the alien is right up against the side of her face. And that's as bad as it got. And when you watch the film, you think to yourself, I actually saw the most disturbing scene already, and it was just in the marketing. I think David Fincher, I think he's got it right when I'm going to quote from him. I think audiences find it pretentious and ponderous and resent the fact that it is not a scary scare movie, it's a queasy scare movie. And I think his analysis is right on there. It's trudging. You don't really care for people. And I remember me and my friend, we tried to have a discussion afterwards because we thought, we're going to have something to talk about. It's a new Alien film. And we're just, about that scene was, it was interesting. There's some nice lines in there. And we just moved on talking about other things. And we were both big fans of Alien, and you should not have that effect on fans of what was then becoming a franchise. But I do remember the aftermath is probably what I remember more, because I remember thinking, because this was a rental video at the time, and I remember thinking, yeah, I kind of like when Sigourney Weaver had that, she went down to the basement and she was like, I'm part of the family, and scenes like that, and they kept playing on my mind, and I wanted to see it again. But then the problem became, I saw it again, I just feel the same way about the film. Like at the end, those high points, and they're usually dramatic high points, where Ripley's saying a line with poignancy. A lot of the acting, you can't fault it for. But at the end, it never rises above that. You're still left with this feeling like you've been treading water. And I remember thinking, the other thing that me and my friends agreed on by the time we'd all seen it was the interesting characters like Andrews and Clemens, it was like Hicks and Newt dying off was a foreshadow to the characters with interesting backstories or who had some presence. They're all getting killed off at the start, and except for Dylan, who is a good character, although he's never really given much backstory except for him saying, I'm a murderer and rapist of women, which is an interesting way of putting it. He's never really given any background. None of them are really given any background, which is a big part of, there's nothing to hook into with them. Why are they there? And at the end of the day, they themselves tell Ripley, so they themselves tell the audience, we're rapists, we're murderers, we're child molesters. You shouldn't care about us. And me as the audience, I'm going, yeah, I don't care about you. Come on, alien, kill them off. But yeah, there were those little moments where the film does, you feel, there are those little dramatic moments of dialogue. And they go, yeah, that was a good dramatic scene. But then you sit through the entire film and you go, is that worth it? I'd rather go back and watch Alien. I'd rather go back and watch Aliens. And that is not an effect the film should have on even a casual audience. So, yeah, that's my feeling. It's the whole thing felt like you're sort of walking through honey almost, but they never capitalized on you've got something as disturbing and potentially as terror-inducing as the alien, and they made a big deal on all the posters of 3 times the terror, and it's hiding in the most terrifying places. But even the thing about Ripley's got a chest burster and it's a queen, you already know that. It literally starts out with a face hugger on someone's face in an X-ray. You know that. They blew their load right from... They could have kept that, and that impact where Ripley has the CAT scan and she falls apart, and that is good acting. But it's kind of blown because we as the audience, I remember sitting there and I'm going, yeah, and it's just, okay, it's a queen, but at that point, it's an alien anyway. You don't... Okay. So there's... But I will say, as of last night, I can also say, well, I've had another first with the film. I saw the assembly cut for the first time on Blu-ray. Now, previous to this, I'd seen the assembly cut on DVD. I had problems with that because things like the ox scene, the audio wasn't quite there. I noticed on this time with the Blu-ray, a lot of the audio problems and that had been very much polished. Up until last night, I thought the assembly cut is different. It's not necessarily better because at the end, you don't see Ripley chest burst, but because of how they edit the music, you're waiting for that climax of something to happen, and it doesn't happen. It feels anticlimactic, and yet the original has it burst out of her, but she's not in agony. She's just weirdly cradling it. But as of last night, I'm now starting to feel, except for that part right at the end, the assembly cut is better. You have one of the examples, a scene which felt like, why did they do that?
Well, let's
Where
not go too
everything's on
much into
fire.
the differences yet.
Okay,
because
but
that's
I will
something that
say that one in the assembly cut, that whole scene is given a reason. So the assembly cut gives things purpose in a better way than the original. But yeah, a lot of people say you change your views. I still feel it's got high points in spite of what it is. But it just feels like something where I wish they hadn't made it. And I know that a big part of that was they had money on the line and they had to make something within a certain time, but you watch it and it feels like it is a cinematic cautionary tale. And I didn't really care about Hicks and Newt dying emotionally, but what did they replace them with? And when you're trying to replace something, it needs to be as good, if not better. And they just replaced them with red shirts. And so that, for me, is where the Hicks and Newt thing falls down. But
again,
lot of it
that's something we
just-
can talk about in more detail later. Is
Yeah,
the Hicks and
but
Newt
that's
all.
my memories of it. All of that I felt at the time, and with friends, we talked about. We felt that's how it felt to us. It was very much not we hate Alien 3, but well, why couldn't they have done X, Y, and Z? And yeah, it just felt very underwhelming.
Okay. Right then. So, Alien 3 was the second Alien film I saw. Aliens took me until I attempted to watch it twice until I finally saw it all the way through. When I was around 10. When I was around 10, Dad's there. We've got the Region 1 version of the Alien Legacy box set, and we're watching it on this multi-region player. It's all fancy at the time. Ooh, I can watch American DVDs. And we finished watching Aliens, and I said, can we watch the next one? And Dad says to me, are you sure it's pretty crap? And I was like, yes, let's watch it. And we watched it through, and I've never not liked Alien 3. I've never not liked it. Even the theatrical version, which was the one we watched. So, I was 10. This was a good few years before the quadrilogy came out. At that time, I don't think I was on any of the mail groups either. So I don't think I had any exposure to people's opinions of it other than that one brief comment from my dad. Are you sure? It's crap. And I liked it. I've always liked it. As I've got older, I've learned more about it and appreciated how good it is in spite of what it could have been. I'm not a fan of a lot of the old scripts. I appreciate the train wreck that it was for everybody making it. But it's also got to the point now where I like it in spite of a lot of the problems. Now, I think we've discovered over the course of the years that we've all known each other that I'm a fucking depressing person. AJ was. We had some podcast where I was like, everybody's a bastard, and AJ's like, what? You don't like people? No, I don't like people. The world's unfair. Not just the sci-fi world, but the real world. It's unfair. I've always been a depressing child. And
That
I'm a
was
depressing
the
adult.
that was the Into Charybdis podcast.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the things I really love is that downer tone of Alien 3. Eric's has a lot more, and AJ have a lot more confidence in people in the world than I do. But no, the tone of Alien 3 is something I really like about it, and it resonates. The world is unfair. Alien is unfair. The world of Alien is unfair, and I like that. But it also means I also have to be in the right mood to watch Alien 3. I always, again, not really wanting to do a number score, but I like Alien 3 as much as I like Alien and Aliens. I do. Again, in spite of problems. I have a lot of problems with it myself. There's a lot of things I would redo. And to the point where I've often been tempted to actually sit down and start doing that my alternate take on Alien 3, write a script on it. But I'm not a finisher, so I don't get there. But I enjoy it in spite of problems. But it also has a lot of my favourite things of the series in. Elliot Goldenthal's score is easily my favourite of the scores from the entire series. It is. That is something that I used to like to listen to when I was doing creative things. When I was in college, when I was writing stuff for my film courses, and when I was writing fan productions and stuff like that. It was always Goldenthal's score that I listened to. And to this day, it's when I want to listen to an Alien score, It's normally Alien Trilogy, to be honest. It's normally the game's soundtrack I put on. But other than that, it is Goldenthal. It is what's his face from Covenant. Those are my favorite two soundtracks of the series. It also has my favorite cinematography of the series. Alex Thompson and David Fincher's style is easily my favorite. The low angle looking up thing is it's what influenced me when I was in college doing films and stuff. That was the style that I tended to follow. But it is a train wreck. It is. If I hadn't learned as much about the film after the fact, would I like it as much? I was going to make a racist joke about everybody not being able to tell the difference between bold Brits, but even Eric ruined that as the Brit. Not able to tell the difference, and that's applicable. I wouldn't know off the names if it wasn't for things like the trading cards or online and the websites and stuff like that. So Alien 3 to me is a weird film because it is fundamentally flawed on every level from inception to release, because of the things that happen with the film. The studio fight and the studio politics and the people involved in making the films. You won't hear about it when you're listening to this, probably, because I don't think I'm that fast. But we've recorded an interview with Rex Pickett, who was one of the writers on Fincher's version of the film, and that's something he talks about in our interview with him, is just this absolute petty schoolyard mentality that went on around that production and the things that it did to the production. How that film is as good as it is beyond me. It really is. But again, in spite of that, I enjoy it. I enjoy it as much as the first two somehow. I don't understand why I do like it so much, especially when I have so many problems with it. I forget who it was. Somebody was talking about the alien, being this stalker, not stalker, like Freddy Krueger and that kind of slasher.
Yeah,
Yes, that's it.
it became a slasher in this.
Yeah, becoming a slasher. You know what my big problem is? Why the fuck is the alien not taking people back to the hive? Why have we
Yes.
got this slasher aspect going off? There is so much, like Resurrection for me, there is so much buried in there that could have been more interesting. But I still like it.
so wanted that meat locker cocoon scene
Yeah.
where it badly lacked that
It did take
moment where you
Clemens,
found out what
like-
was happening.
There were a
Yeah, but it
few-
also killed him with a head bite through the head.
Yeah.
What the alien, to me, he should have been kidnapping people, taking them back to a hive, preparing for the queen to come out, that kind of thing. And yes, you can probably fansplain it away with, it came from a dog, it came from an ox, it's supposed to be more, bestial. Maybe that makes it less intelligent than an alien-born creature, but that's fansplanation, which again, this film has a lot of fan justification and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm an absolute hypocrite who doesn't understand how he enjoys this film as much as he does, even though he has so many problems with it.
I would like to very much agree with you about the music. It is probably my favorite soundtrack out of the entire series, and I would also like to say, although I was very negative in my view, the very beginning and very end credit sequences are some of the best I've seen in any film. I love Alien 3 for those credit sequences. They are works of art, literally.
But
And
even just
Elliot
that
Gordonthal
musical
stuff,
sting coming down from the Fox fanfare, that's fucking brilliant.
I love that. That is beautifully done.
Because of that fanfare, I associate
Yes.
the Fox music with Alien every
Yes.
time, because in my head, whenever I hear that Fox fair, I hear it go into Alien 3.
And that was the first
Ooh,
time that
yeah.
it ever happened, and it wouldn't happen again until AVPR.
Guys,
it was so good, that
I
part.
love the music, but did you guys find it like oddly edited in situations, or some strange choices? Like, I'll give you guys two examples. There was like this strange bassoon that would screech in and out, high and low, when Clemens was telling Ripley about why he was, with these prisoners. And then that weird choice of rock and roll type music when Ripley's about to get
Yeah.
raped.
Right, yeah, that was
You
weird.
know,
I liked
and this,
that
That
rock
is
and
one
roll
of the
bit,
that's
but
one of the
it
best
was
tracks in the
it is.
friggin'
it's a
a
film.
really
great.
good.
It is, but it was
Hang
odd
on.
placement for the track. I
Yeah,
see
my
what you mean,
my
AJ.
point is, it's a
Yeah,
good
the
soundtrack,
style.
but it's the choice for that particular scene,
It
which
was
was
like rave techno music. Yeah,
and it was a strange scene to begin with because he puts on the goggles
rape
and
goggles. Yeah,
and he screams like he's in a Mad Max
Yes.
movie,
It was very Mad Max. Yeah,
versus a tense, scary gang rape. It was
Yeah.
treated like a music video, which I know David Fincher is famous for. But
I
so I
believe
love that
Golden.
track. I just don't love it there.
Yeah, I believe Goldenthal has said when he wrote that track specifically, I think he was inspired by the LA riots that were going on. So he would have seen a lot of violent imagery, and while he was composing that, so it would have been inspired by chaotic scenes of violence. So when you listen to it, yeah, it works for that kind of scene. The issue is because it's so different to the rest of the music in it. It doesn't feel like it's almost the same composer. But I will say, if you listen to the Alien 3 soundtrack as a whole, and you listen to the soundtrack of Interview with the Vampire, also done by Goldenthal, it sounds like one single movie. It's strange. A lot of the music from Interview with the Vampire, you could fit it in Alien 3, especially with the what Aaron said about the cinematography, which James Cameron has praised. Alien 3's cinematography, I did notice last night on the Blu-ray,
Well, let's
especially.
stick on the music. Let's stick on the music for a bit.
Okay, I was going to say how gothic it looks, but yeah.
Yeah,
music.
Goldenthal's score was just really excellent. And yeah, I watched the special features recently, and Goldenthal, when he was interviewed, said, "Oh, I might have seen the movie once in a theater sometime, maybe."
It was like
And
5 minutes or something, weren't it?
so yeah, you get a sense that these creatives that worked on the movie were just they were
Burnt
very
out.
frustrated
Yeah.
themselves with the studio politics and how the studio was treating the film. But that's something that Goldenthal did just knock it out of the park with. I do agree with you though, AJ, that I feel like some of the placement of some tracks was odd, and there also was a sense that he was trying to have some of the music be more of a character and kind of be in place of some of the sound effects, which made things harder for the sound design team, admittedly.
Well, that's something they talked about behind the scenes as well.
Right.
And you know what? One of the sequences that the documentary shows off for that is Ripley running down, the corridor into the mess hall, and you have this heavy percussive stuff going on where it's kind of like her footsteps, or her foot crashing on the floor. I really like that. That is an aspect to his music that I quite like, is that it almost bleeds into the actual sound effects of what could be happening, but exaggerated because it's a musical instrument. It's not a footstep; it's a percussive element instrument. That worked for me a lot.
Yeah. And I think there have been a few orchestral performances for the Alien series, and you can't deny that those themes from Alien 3 are some of the most powerful themes, especially just right at the end where Ripley has sacrificed herself, and it goes back to the EEV, and it's comes back to the first movie, the last survivor signing off. Like, it goes to that like really soft tone there. Like, the music is just so good for Alien 3. And I'm going to bring up AVPR again because it showed, like, I love Brian Tyler's amalgamation, incorporating some of those themes of Alien 3 and Resurrection. So that those themes have staying power. So yeah, the music was one of the least of this movie's problems, for
It
sure.
wasn't a problem. It wasn't a
No,
problem.
it was one of the areas where it was consistently beautiful, I would say. Alien 3 is the music. AJ, I will say, when I was watching Assembly Cut last night, I did notice on some of the slightly added footage, like some of the Clemens stuff, I did notice, what are they doing this bit of music for? Because it sounded like awkwardly horrific, and I'm sure they had Goldenfall compose music for other pieces, and then they were kind of probably going, well, what should we put here? Oh, I don't know, this piece. So that's probably more of an editing issue. I don't know the history of it, but
It felt like two muffled instruments, guys. I am not an expert with instruments, but when you put something in front of a trumpet to make this like muffled noise, and he had two instruments talking to each other as Ripley and Clements were speaking to each other. I was actually being taken out of the scene when I hear that. I'm like, what is this choice? I don't understand. It kind of reminds me actually of some of the unique music in Aliens Fireteam Elite as well.
more experimental kind of thing.
More experimental, yeah. So,
but yeah, he was very much experimenting with the tones and the instruments that he was using. I could have sworn it used to be in the documentary, but it wasn't in the Blu-ray when I was watching it the other day. But unless I'm confusing it with Frizzle in Resurrection, but like using like a bar of metal as like a violin of some variety.
Yeah, Silvestri, who did the music for the Predator films, I remember having a Back to the Future annual one year, and I remember seeing in there was a whole article which was just about the music, and he said he'd got this new computerized system. I think he called it Synclavia, and he said, what's amazing about this is I can have this sound and this sound and this sound, and I mix them together and it sounds just like this instrument. And I remember thinking to myself, why don't you just use the instrument? So I think back then, early 90s, a lot of film composers were being very experimental because they wanted to try something new. And I think with Alien 3, regardless of how they came about, the individual parts, it's the I don't know what it is, but it's that fusion. Whatever Goldenfall was aiming for, it's the end result. It just has a really nice fusion. Like Aaron, when I'm doing writing for anything, it touches on the themes that the Alien films do. 9 times out of 10, I will go for the Alien 3 soundtrack. It is just so inspiring.
How do you guys feel about having a choir in Alien films? Because this was the first time.
Was it? Didn't Aliens have some voices?
No, there was. I think it was all percussive. But no, I mean it's very choiry. The whole start of the film is what are they singing? Isn't it like Lamb of God in Latin or something like that?
Yeah. But I mean that feeds into the religious themes of the film. So.
Yeah. Agnus Dei.
Yeah, there you go. I never had a problem with that because again I find it suits the tone of the film. I'm not going to say it's depressing, but thematically, you hear choir, you probably think church, you probably think religious stuff, and it suits Alien 3 down to a T for me.
And that was something else when I said earlier, I wish they'd done this, that, and the other. That lends itself beautifully to when you hear characters like Golek talk about, the dragon. And as soon as I saw that scene, I thought, there's some interesting religious metaphors you could work into the Alien, but it was one of those things they didn't take and run with when they could. But yeah, it really suited things like that, where you had these choir voices, and it was all about. I mean, again, in the funeral scene, where whether it's a dog or an ox, and you have Dylan deliver the his eulogy, I suppose it was called, and you have within every seed there is a flower, and the music, it's got this beauty, but it fuses into this like the loss of hope with a very dark, haunting overtone right at the end, and I think that's got choir voices in it as well, but it uses them as a strength. It reinforces the religious, not religious, the blasphemous tones of the alien itself within the film.
Eric, I do agree with you in regards to the dragon. I really wish they played that up as,
Yeah.
some of these prisoners thought this was the devil, right? And or Satan's work coming to get them, and they had to have faith in God to defeat they could have played it up a lot stronger, and obviously they broke away from that with that theatrical cut, because you get a lot more religious aspect in the assembly
do,
cut,
yeah.
but I think they could have even went further, and I think that would have helped the film. Maybe if they had more time,
And that's
It
what it
would
was
have
in
reinforced the mythology, wouldn't it?
yeah.
and that's what it was
I
more in
mean,
Vincent Ward's script. They did kind of view it more as the devil in that one.
I hate Ward's script. So that is I'd say Ward's script. Who wrote it? Fazno wrote it with him. I always disliked how heavy that did go into the religious sort of stuff, to the point where, they're exercising the alien. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, they're like pushing it
nah.
out of her body or something. Yeah.
So there is a balance to be struck with the religious elements of the alien, but it
Yeah.
can work. That's one of the things I like about Mark Verheiden's comic. I like the cult around the
Yeah.
alien.
Yeah.
I like the idea of building a religion around the alien, but it's balance, isn't it? As it stands, I'm happy we got what we did rather than what we could have got with Wards.
Well, I
in
mean,
terms of that.
it's like when we've discussed Predator before, and we've said the mythological aspects of
You like the
Predator.
Herbie Dragon, don't you?
Yeah, but it works so well with both the Predator and the alien. When you have in Predator where Anna talks about the demons who makes Provis a man, and in Predator 2 you had the voodoo stuff, which works really well because you had basically a voodoo priest facing off against the Predator and seeing the reflection in the water and then the trophies. When you have the setup for Alien 3, and I think initially in earlier drafts and stuff, there was more to do with the prisoners blaming Ripley. So what about, she herself has brought disharmony in, and she's broken the circle, and she is evil personified, and she's brought that in, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of religious texts. Some of them could have literally read out. Like, these are actual Bible reading people. They could have actually just thrown this text at her like medieval monks, which is what in the Vincent Ward script they were. But they don't ever go down that path. It's one of those roads not taken, which I think could have worked really well. But
Well, didn't Clemens make
different.
Didn't Clemens make a mockery of that religion the way he explained it?
Yeah, more in the assembly cut, I think that is. I don't think that's in the theatrical, but he does say, "Oh yeah, it's a millennium." He generalizes it because he doesn't really understand it. He says it's a millennialist Christian, blah blah blah. He doesn't even know how to convey what it is.
And Rex Pickett's draft actually went into that a bit more. It went more into Dylan discovering all these books and kind of taking what he liked of all religions and putting them together into one. And I do find that would have been an interesting factor to explore a bit more.
We touch on the cult, the cult aspects of it, because that's meant to be what the prisoners all basically their mental sanity kind of semi depends on that, because it's we've all heard stories about people going insane during lockdown. They've been there for what, 20 years or something. They've been there, and they need something like that, because I think Morse says it's a really nice quote. Morse says, "We got no entertainment, we got no this, we got no that, we got no fucking ice cream," and it really rams home that if they didn't have a religion or some form of cult, that's probably the only thing preventing them from going off the deep end. Because Aaron 85, not you, Aaron, he says, I'm going home on the next rotations. Him and Andrews, they're not stuck there, but Clemens, the rest, they've got this bond which has been forged for years, and a lot of it is rooted in this cult, but we never examine it. And it's interesting because it's a kind of a benevolent cult. Whenever something creeps into it, like you get a bit more in the assembly cut with Golic and how they distrust it, Dylan is the one who steps in, reinforces it more like a school teacher than like a priest, but he uses that bond to basically says, pipe your bullshit down, get on with the job. And it's nice to see it's not an example of a cult which is abusing and exploiting people. It's just keeping them together, but it's never explored, and it's just such a shame because you do have that dragon aspect there, and Ripley is an outsider, and it's the road not taken, but there's so much potential there.
I mean, I do think that there's still like a a strong religious, even folkloristic element in Alien 3's story, but like structurally and visually. Like, for example, the stranger bringing a monster with it, some kind of like werewolf, a little bit, with a dragon, werewolf dragon. And also, we often see, the alien alongside fire. There's a whole sequence with the alien chasing people across fire and stuff. So there's
That's a
very
good
strong imagery.
observation.
Yeah, because oftentimes when you want to make a monster, like a creature like character, into a dragon, metaphorically or visually, you don't need it to breathe fire. You just need it to suggest fire. So they put a lot of fire, in that sequence to, other movies that have dragon-like creatures like Outlander do the same trick. They don't have actual fire coming out of the creature. They associate the creature with fire in different ways. And Outlander is another movie that was based on the Beowulf story. And I feel like Alien 3 has strong Beowulf elements because ultimately it's it's Ripley killing the alien, and she sacrifices herself. She dies like Beowulf does. At the same time, there's like a religious layer to it because she can be seen as, the pure Lamb of God, Agnus Dei, from, the first track in the soundtrack, banishing the devil that they have taken inside themselves because they are a scapegoat, a Lamb of God, a sacrifice to banish evil, and they banish it through fire because she plunges into the comically large like
Let
it's
mode, yeah.
and I feel like that's entirely intentional because it's hell. It's literal hell fire.
Yeah.
There's so much religious imagery throughout the film as well. The cross in one of the establishing shots. You've got a lot of like the reliefs on the walls and stuff like that appear, like stained glass stuff that you'd find in church and stuff like that.
Trying to make Ripley into Christ. So I think I've read some stuff about that was deliberate.
Well, I mean, even the Pope. Well, I suppose it's in the assembly cut, isn't it? Yeah, where she goes down in the Christ pose and everything.
Yeah, I feel like the sequence you mentioned with the fire, David, where they're trying to trap the alien in that storage tank. That's where the assembly cut is fundamentally better for me, because as long as I can remember watching the movie, it always felt like that sequence ended very jarringly, like something was missing there, because everything goes to hell when he drops the igniter. There's fire everywhere, and then suddenly it just fades away, and they're all walking like they had failed, and it's like, wait, what happened to the alien? Like, what? So it just felt like there was a big chunk missing, and of course now we knew there was. And seeing that full sequence, even little things like the character that had previously attempted to rape Ripley, she's now trying to save another one with this guy, and there's a moment where they look at each other, and ultimately this guy ends up sacrificing himself to lure the alien into the chamber so they can lock it in there. So that sequence is just so much more fleshed out, and it really shows when the theatrical cut just has that jump from we're in the middle of this intense sequence until, oh, we failed, now what do we do, even though that naturally came much later. I don't think that stitching together ever felt like it worked in the theatrical before I even knew about that. And seeing more of the aliens, seeing it in the fire there, we don't see that at all in the theatrical
And
cut.
that is some of the best
So,
imagery as well of the
yeah.
alien. Is this surrounded by fire look, and that's another reason I like that scene as well. Is I think it's Junior is redeeming and is sacrificing. It's again this religious sort of themes. Of redemption, of making up for your sins and all that, but also the sacrifice that goes throughout the end of the film as well. That I like that scene. I like that sequence. But
Can I just say about the igniter, just go down another rung. That I find that so cringing as he's stretching down and it's
oh,
supposed to be tense. Just go
it's so
down another
realistic
rung.
though.
Just
Yeah.
climb down the ladder a little bit.
It's
yeah.
so
Yeah.
realistic that somebody would do that.
It kind of. I want to know what that all these years I've never understood what that guy means. Buh. He just looks up and he goes buh. Like what?
It's just an exclamation.
Buh.
Does anybody have Peter Briggs on Facebook? No. Okay.
I don't
So,
know, I might do.
I think I very much think that little bit is like a little bit of dark comedy because the guy has no idea what he just did, and then next cut is bam, all hell breaks loose, break havoc kind of thing. That's not the only instance of humor in the movie because even in the rape scene, the one AJ talked about a little bit while ago, like the guy does this with the goggles. That's clearly dark comedy. Or the guys, running into each other at the end in the maze.
Yeah.
And,
the scissors.
they bump into each other, and one says, you don't run with scissors, you idiot. And then the guy gets killed by an alien.
Well, that's
That was, I think, the beginning of the
there's-
dark
yeah, it's
comedy
not so much-
in Alien.
I would say
there's
that
also
was
the best.
I was just going to say, I think that's not so much comedy, but that's more to help humanize the characters, because that's the kind of thing that would happen with people running around,
but
like they hit each other.
I was
and
going
go,
to
"Oh,
say,
yeah.
what a space.
Yeah, but they're
for
clearly
dark
idiots.
comedy.
Like you
Yeah.
clearly
The whole
see
place
them
is
as
full
idiots,
of
and they find
idiots.
idiots funny. So
If I can mention about that dark comedy, because there was a little inappropriate dark comedy in regards to just dishonoring aliens. I mean, immediately when Ripley finds out, she goes, she finds out Newt and Hicks are dead. She says to Clemens, "Where are the others?" And Clemens says they didn't make it. They didn't survive. She stands up. She has a little smirk on her. And she says, you want to get me some clothes, or should I just go out like this, butt naked? And
it's a little weird, yeah.
And there was a little twinkle in her eye and a little smirk on her face, and it was a little sarcastic moment in a moment that should be overwhelmingly painful. It should be, please get me some clothes, please. I need to get to the ship, something like that. If you care about aliens, if you care about the characters in Aliens, and you care about the people who love these characters, you shouldn't be writing this way. You shouldn't be so cavalier towards their deaths. And they just do this stuff in the film, and it frustrates me.
I mean,
You see, I tend to think of that more as a coping mechanism than anything, because the early parts of the film, she is fucking devastated. The funeral scene is easily one of my favorite scenes from the entire series.
Well,
And,
that's afterwards.
And at that
Yeah.
moment, she's still highly disoriented and drugged up too. So
they already had a little bit of a conversation lying down. I don't think the moment lands, like a lot of Alien 3, whatever they were trying for. It's disjointed. It's the tone is off, and otherwise there wouldn't be so many complaints about this film, right? So I think the script suffers. Yeah.
The one of the things with Alien 3 is whether you like it or loathe it or feeling different. It's always felt like Alien and Aliens, it's almost like one single film. The tone is very much, it feels like one single thing, and you get to Alien 3 and it's like you've gone into a brick wall. It feels like a very different kind of world. It feels with
I can't say
the
I agree with
characters,
that.
everything. It feels like there's a disjoint from what's gone before it, definitely.
I feel like Alien and Aliens have a fundamentally different vibe.
Yeah.
And as does Alien 3. And that was what was so interesting about the first 4 Alien films, is each one had their own unique tone, identity, feel to it. So yeah, I did not see. I mean, Aliens was a great sequel, and I love Aliens, but it did not have the same feel of the first film for me. Granted,
for
Alien 3,
me, it was conflicting vibes within itself, not from movie Alien to Aliens to Alien 3, but it felt inside Alien 3 that they weren't sure what they were going for all the time.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
there was
Well,
one
they
more.
probably weren't. They probably weren't.
Yeah.
yeah,
There was
fair.
one more piece of dark comedy I wanted to mention, which is only in the assembly cut, where they're in the hallways and they're about to have the alien chase them, and they all just start laughing at their
Yeah.
predicament that they're in. And it's just kind of a weird kind of scene where they all just start laughing before the alien starts offing them and chasing them.
Yeah, I mean, that goes to dark humor and how people are like in crisis situations, I think.
And
But,
you're all missing the funniest and the best piece of dialogue in the film as well.
what?
Fuck.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's so great when no one believes her and it just grabs the warden right in front of everyone.
I mean,
Right when it
that-
needed to.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that
Or-
scene, yeah, that's well done. Although
Or
I remember
or
that
that-
hitting me as very disappointing because of how thick the suit was. But one of the major problems with Alien 3 you said about like no one believes her. I remember a lot of reviews at the time were mentioning the big problem with the setup of this is that people say, oh, Alien 3 was doing its own thing. It was being different. But the problem was it wasn't, because it's going back over, it's putting Ripley back to square one. She's in a strange environment. She's woken up. Nobody believes her. And it's just going, you're repeating what Aliens has already done, except Aliens did it better. And the weird thing is, she actually has a way to prove herself, because she could just reactivate Bishop again, and she doesn't. So you're just going back over the steps she's already gone through back on Gateway. And
I mean,
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean,
That's
that
fair.
was
I
one of those
mean,
things.
that's fair, but to be fair, myself, I mean, that's exactly what Aliens does with Alien. The same story bits, arranged differently or with different length. And Alien 3 just does that like with different story points from the previous movie. So I feel like that's fair. That's the method they've been using. So I don't mind that at all.
So Adam, you were mentioning the alien runner, I think, chasing everyone down in the hallways. There were two things that I came away with that. First, I think this was the first time we saw alien vision, I believe,
Yes. Mhm.
before.
Yes.
And at the time, I didn't even realize aliens had eyes.
They don't.
Well, or could see. Yeah, no, they don't.
Well, they could have like a lens at the front. Nobody knows. But yeah,
Yeah.
Fincher wanted it on there.
But I always thought it was more like something like sonar or smells or senses or something.
I
Yeah.
think somebody involved in the earlier movies, I think it was Ridley Scott, mentioned that the entire dome could be like one giant compound eye or something like that. I might misremembering.
I do remember what AJ just said about the fisheye lens. I do remember back then when I first watched it, I thought, oh, this is so disappointing, because at that time, everybody used a fisheye lens for a monster. And I thought, it's the Alien. Make it like Curlian photography. Make it something unique, and then fisheye lens, go! And it just felt so cheap.
The fisheye was a bit simplistic, but I will say what the cinematographer did in terms of running down the hallway and up the wall and on the ceiling was really cool. But yeah, we wouldn't see the alien perspective again, I think, until Covenant, where Ridley just had it have a bunch of like floaters,
Same thing, but hexagonal, yeah.
But I didn't mind the the seeing the alien's perspective, like I think that's kind of an interesting element where it's like it's an alien, it has some sort of ultra sensory way of having an image of what's in front of it in its mind, and it doesn't need to have eyes. So, but I thought it was a nice element in Alien 3, if maybe a bit overused.
My,
Um,
my only problem with it is another contrivance, that they slowed the alien down, because you saw how fast the runner would go.
yeah,
The runner would catch up
it
with
doesn't
all
match
these
with the
guys.
lens.
Yeah,
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 that
but
really came across when I was rewatching it. I thought that they should have sped that, but then the human would have looked like the human was going like Benny Hill speed. But yeah, they should have had the camera on some sort of rail system where it would just shoot down there. Yeah.
that's why I think I saw these contrived moments in the script where they like these moments, like, why do we have lice, right? Because David Fincher imagined Ripley would really look cool bald, so much so that we get this like horrific music kind of swell when the camera pans up, and here comes the mirror, and there's Ripley, with the shaved head,
Bald.
and of
It's
course
such a cool reveal, though. Come on.
no, it is a cool look, but it's not organic, and then
It's purely for visual.
and it causes the problem with everyone else being bald. And you could have basically,
Yeah.
from the wreckage, have her cut her head. She needed stitches, they needed to shave part of her head, and she just shaved the whole thing. And next thing you know, you have a better way to distinguish the other characters without everyone with a shaved head. But these were the thoughts behind, just like the honor system, right? You have no weapons cache at all, and it's contrived because these mental patients cannot go on an honor system. You had Andrews saying minutes before, explaining to everyone that they were all thieves, they were all murderers, they were all rapists, they were all child molesters, all scum. And a couple minutes later, he's like, hey, we're on the honor system, with these psychopaths, and it's not logical at all. They at least would have a weapons cache put to the side, but they could have easily explained it away, because if Ripley's ship, escape pod or whatever, crashed, they could say it crashed into the weapons cache.
Yeah, the armory. Yeah,
right.
It's a British prison. We don't have weapons in British prisons.
But you have weapons.
Right,
Britain.
control
No,
gear of some
no.
sort.
No, you have, if they need them, you have them. Do you know what I mean?
We don't have
you-
we don't have
not
weapons
even
in
Your
British.
government
shields or
has no
battens or
weapons,
something.
Aaron. Your
In
government.
in the prisons,
No,
they
I
don't
know.
have have weapons.
But what happens?
They have
if
battens.
What
Yeah,
happens
that's what
if
I'm saying.
things get out of hand? This is a maximum
But
security prison.
even the tornadoes don't use weaponry like that. It's riot gear. It's battens. It's shields.
But I guarantee you, there's weapons if they need them, stashed somewhere in a cache somewhere in the UK.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between an entire fucking country and a prison where half the security is the fact that they're out on a planet in the middle of nowhere.
Well, that's
Well, I think
security for
it's-
everyone else, but not for the people who work there. Not for Andrews, who thinks they're all scum
I mean,
and not, and not trustworthy.
As a plot contrivance, like that's the reason why they don't have. I think it works well. Hasn't aged well, because these days you watch it and you go, they could just 3D print them or something. But at the time, it works for explaining why. And you could have used okay, people facing off against an alien without weapons. That's interesting. But what do they do with it? I mean, it doesn't. They're running around with scissors that they don't even hit one. You have acid come out. Nothing happens with it, so they don't use it.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have actually seen somebody try and go up against the alien with a blade or a knife. Something.
I think the no weapons plot point works because it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous on purpose, because that's Ripley's reaction. This is a high security prison, and you have no weapons of any kind. Like, you can feel the passive aggressive kind of thing going on with her dialogue here. And it works because of that, because she's frustrated. She has to face a worst nightmare and she doesn't even have like the comforts of the previous
Yeah.
movie.
And she has the sarcasm later, like, we have the ability to make fire, right? Like do you
Yeah,
guys
Stone
have anything
Age.
around here?
I get that perspective, but Andrew's answer doesn't sell it to the audience. It's you see these steps taking, like nothing works, right? Well, I mean, you want Ripley with a shaved head. You want this awesome autopsy scene with Newt. You want to rip her apart. Now, of course, they have technology now that you could just scan people inside. There's no need to actually do an autopsy if you're looking for something. You have scanners. You have what is that stuff the pregnant people use? It's that little
Ultrasound.
little
Well, they have
wand
that
or
in the
something
movie
like
too.
that.
You should have just
Yeah.
Well,
taken
no,
Newt to the EV.
yeah, I know, but we wanted this awesome, chilling
That is
autopsy
one of
scene.
the few scenes in any film that I just have to turn away from. I can't stomach it.
Well, they had to trim it down too,
think-
didn't they?
It was
Yeah.
surprisingly
Yeah,
tasteful,
actually they
though.
did.
Like
Yeah.
there's quick cuts, you only hear
It
the
was.
sounds. It's very tastefully
Yeah.
made. Like it's kind of like they had to do it because she wanted to ensure that that Newt didn't have anything inside her, and they couldn't move the corpse from the morgue because if she had something,
Yeah, true.
it could have burst out at any time. So they needed to make sure there in that place.
Yeah.
So they
Well, I
had to
think
do
it,
the autopsy. It's
It-
a
it looks
logical
like-
conclusion.
Yeah.
Hold up.
It
it
looks
goes
like they
back to
wanted
what.
sequences, right? They wanted these things to appear in the movie, and the
Yeah.
movie didn't spur organically. We want her with the shaved head. We want to have this autopsy scene. We want to have no weapons because it's in Ripley's contract, and we're going to put this all together. And I'm not even sure if the idea of monks and prisoners work. Combining those two, I guess, original script ideas, right? You're merging the two, and it doesn't tend to blend logically, not at least in this movie, the way it was conveyed to us.
What do you mean?
What I
Well,
mean
it was the
is,
producers going, we need to make
No,
this
no,
more
I-
commercial, and
I
they
mean,
changed
well-
it to prisoners. It was.
No, I mean the idea of monks and prisoners.
Well,
Because
you're-
people find religion in prison is
no,
very
absolutely,
stereotypical.
absolutely. But your goal here is to not have weapons of any kind, right? You want to go up against the alien with no weapons, okay? And the way you come up with that scenario is you say you have psychopathic killers, scum, you can't trust them, but they all found religion and were on the honor system. You're blending these as your reasons to the audience why there are no weapons available in this film, and you say, please, you're trying to sell this by the merging. I'm not saying you can't merge the ideas, but the ideas feel merged to sell a premise that is just eye-rolling to so many audience members. They make fun of this aspect. If you watch Alien 3 reviews where they're making fun of this film, this gets brought up a lot. It just doesn't seem to logically gel for them.
But I think as I say, the no weapons thing, I think it could have been really well done if they had done the logical thing and gone, okay, we don't have any firearms. We need to approach this. Again, they could have fed into the dragon narrative and gone, we need to approach this like we're medieval. We're in a castle. We've got a dragon on the loose. How did they defeat dragons in the old days? And try and think like, okay, make the equivalent of a moat or a harpoon or things like that. They could have used that, made it more interesting. But I think the touching on the autopsy scene again, I don't know if any of you guys have read this, so it's just a theory of mine, but I get the impression what they were going for with that, they were trying to replicate what they did in The Thing, where they were sawing the chest open, or they got the heart paddles and it went through it and the thing opened up. I think that's what they were going for. But obviously you went for the red herring version. But I'm pretty sure that's what they were trying to set up. They were trying to make this is a thing's going to come out, and this goes back to what Fincher said, where it was what did he say? It's not a scare movie, it's a queasy scare movie. So you had the stuff with the bone saw and that, but like David said, it's it's actually quite tastefully done. They have little cutaway. It never feels gratuitous. It feels very well done, which is kind of ironic because I think when it comes to the dog burster, I always felt that was very mean-spirited and cruel. I felt that was over the top. That was gratuitous. But I think the ox burster scene, that was fine. But the dog burster one, which was actually reshot because originally they never had the alien explained. The Fox did not see any point in explaining where the alien came from. They put it for test audiences.
That's
and the
only in
audience
terms of
going,
the egg.
Where did it come from?
No, you saw the burster. You just didn't see the eggs.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
You never had.
Yeah.
I've got the quote from it, but they talk about they put it for test audiences. The audience was saying, "Where did the alien come from? Where did the alien come from?" So they went back, and the dog burster was an additional thing. They'd already filmed the movie. They went back and added the dog burster because at that point they said, "Well, the audiences are coming up at us." They say,
Yeah.
"Where's it come from?" And they didn't factor in. They'd filmed
Yeah.
the dog burster, but forevermore people would say, "Where the hell did the egg come from?"
Yeah.
So he never.
I mean,
Because there
so-
are a few creature effects. Sorry, go ahead, David.
No, I mean, you go on.
I was just going to say there are a few creature effect shots in the theatrical cut that are absent in the assembly, and one of them is
Yeah.
what you mentioned, Eric, is you see the facehugger start to creep out of the EEV,
Yeah.
whereas in the assembly you don't see it at all, and they
Yeah.
only hold up the queen facehugger. Very wide shot unfortunately, a wide shot for a very beautifully designed queen facehugger. Like that was one of the things that I think Alien 3 added to it more.
I mean, they had to fix like a continuity issue because you saw the face hugger in the EEV, with the scene zooming in, which you just mentioned. But that was the reshot face hugger. It wasn't the queen face hugger. It was another face hugger prop that mimicked the ones from the previous movie. So this created continuity issue. So that shot in the assembly cut with the queen, they couldn't do it with the theatrical one because the theatrical one established that Ripley was infected by the facehugger.
Yeah, I've got the quote here. This is
Now,
from the.
You're right. They removed a birth scene from the test screening version
Yeah.
because the test screening version was the one that we eventually got the bootleg work print of, and it's absent in that.
Yeah,
But,
and
once-
hold up,
Go on.
just one quick thing.
Yeah.
I think there was no, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. You interrupted
I just
me.
for accuracy. This is purely for your accuracy's sake. I just want to read it. This is from the comic adaptation, issue 1 of the Alien 3 comic, and they've got an interview with the special effects people. Blah blah blah. So this is what David Fincher says about it. To make matters worse, Fox failed to see the need for a scene which explained where the alien had come from and refused to sanction the money for it. Early screenings of the film had no chest-bursting sequence at all. Quote, "We previewed it to audiences," recalls Fincher, "and people would ask, where did the alien come from?" Quote, "With less than 2 months to go before the scheduled US release, already put back at least twice, the studio relented and authorized a 2-day shoot, which was quite short, for the dogburster sequence." So originally, the dogburster was not at all in there for test audiences. So it's a direct result of that that's in there.
Guys, I imagine if they did I think they would have done the ending better or the beginning better and the audience better if they didn't start in the ship, right? When Ripley's talking to Bishop is just pretty much telling Ripley what the audience already knows for the most part. There was a fire. There was an alien board. Was it with us the whole time? Yes. And the audience is always aware. Imagine if this film started out with Clemens outside on Earth, according to the teaser trailer. And sorry, that was just
that was such a good one.
And she and Clemens goes outside and finds Ripley in the mud, covered in that lice. It discovers the body, and the audience is like, "Whoa, that's Ripley? I thought she was on the Soloco," and the audience is wondering what's going on. and the audience would find out with Ripley what exactly happened, and then revelations, and it'd be so much more impactful. And I just really wish it was approached that way.
Yeah, I do really love the model shot though of the EEV going out and then falling onto the planet. They should have at least kept that if they wouldn't have had the rest.
But just before you steer us somewhere else, I know what you're like. Just to AJ's point, that was something the Phasno and the Ward script actually did. It opened on the monks rather than the Sulaco, when it's him in the lake at the top of the planet, and that's when the EV comes down. You don't get all that stuff on the Sulaco, and I agree, because that is a big problem with the film, and it's something I complain about a lot. I don't like being ahead of the characters, and yeah, that is a problem. There's a problem with Alien 3.
And just
I mean,
quickly
I
touching
don't
on
mind
what you
it
said.
as much. Oh, you're gone.
I'm just going to say, just quickly touching on the Bishop scene, I have to say that is one of my favourite scenes in there, and all credit to ADI. That is a complete art animatronic Lance Henriksen. That is not the actor. And Lance Henriksen's voice work for that, it's so good. It's like it's just a dark room, nothing happens. It's one of the best dramatic delivery scenes of the whole film. I love that sequence. It's really good.
I agree wholeheartedly, and the way they did the skin on the puppet was intense. You looked like a real android, and the performance of it, the
I used to
puppeteers did
think it
an
was
enormous job. I maintain that the disassembled Bishop, torn out Bishop, is the best effect in the entire series, alongside the newborn.
On
the
a technical
fucking-
level, yeah,
on a
damn.
technical. Yeah, I'm strictly talking about the technical achievement here, because ADI is very underrated when it comes to achievements in effects. And they did some of the most harrowingly real things I've seen in a movie.
And it's funny as well, considering how shit the first version was of that, that puppet, and how much it didn't work, and they had to redo that in the LA reshoots, and yeah, damn, it's fantastic.
Well,
and it's fun. It's funny as well. Sorry, it's funny as well because in the script, that sequence, or in the scripts, that sequence, it makes a note of it being a speaker, so lip sync isn't required. But then ADI goes and does this fucking motion control thing with with proper lip sync, and yeah. David Giler and Walter Hill didn't think it was doable, so there was a point in the script of, don't worry about it, it's just a speaker at the back of the throat.
I think it's that for the lip sync they got some intel from Baker's team on Gremlins 2, because in Gremlins 2 you have the smart gremlin that does real-time lip sync. That's not sped up, that's real-time lip sync. So I think, but don't quote me on this because it could be like entirely speculative, but I remember reading that they got some intel from Sinovation. I don't remember if it was called Sinovation at the time, or it was Baker's team. So.
Yeah, and this is a good segue into some of the effects for this film, because I think that's a really important discussion and part of the legacy of Alien 3. The commentary for the 2003 assembly cut is really cool, and you have, who's the head of Boss Studios again, Aaron?
I cannot remember.
Okay, so you have him. You have the cinematographer who replaced the one that had Parkinson's. Was it?
Yeah. So Cronenwith, Jordan Cronenwith had Parkinson's,
and then you have Tom and Alec are in there, and then Lance Henriksen makes a couple of appearances in the commentary. He doesn't have too much, not the assembly cut commentary. But they talk a lot about the effects, and they criticize some of their own effects, and they admit, like, if we had gone back and just shot the movie again, knowing what we knew after completing everything, we could have done it a lot better too, because it was a very big learning experience. This was right on the cusp of the move from analog to digital in terms of filmmaking, in terms of creature effects. And so often you hear, oh, there's all this bad CGI in the movie, and it there's only, again, like one or two shots of CGI. The majority of this issue's problems with the rod puppet are not the puppet itself, which they did some awesome animation work
That
with the puppet.
puppet is gorgeous.
It's the compositing work. The shadows and the lighting
Yeah.
don't match with the compositing. There's like an
The matte
outline.
lines as well, yeah.
Yeah, and there's actually a fan project right now called, I think, Alien 3: The Legacy Cut or something like that.
That's a 4K restoration, isn't it?
Yeah, and they fix those issues. You can see it in our forum. Someone posted about it, and it
I
looks so much better. It looks so much better.
yeah, with the color grading, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's like, it has a green tone with it, with the shadows that looks off and
Yeah.
doesn't match with the
I
darker shadows.
recall a friend of mine who was a user on the forums, that they attended like a screening of Alien 3 in 4K, and for the occasion they did something with the color grading, maybe, or was it the fact that it was being projected onto like a theatrical screen as opposed to like our home screen? But she said I remember her saying about it that the alien didn't look as detached from the shot because the colors worked better. It had a more coherent kind of color thing going on with the rest of the shots, because it's greenish. You remember it as greenish because sometimes, with the transfers, when they scan the film or they transfer it onto a digital medium, they forget to do color grading again because it can get corrupted. You know, so, and the problem is the movie has this sepia reddish tone, which is of course in contrast with the greenish kind of thing, which you'd expect in like an Harryhausen movie or something like that, not in an alien movie. And another thing that the compositing harms is the detail of the puppet. The puppet, like we have pictures of it in our gallery, it's tremendously detailed. It was sculpted by Chris Cunningham, member of ADI, when he was 18. He was 18 on this production, and I am so jealous for that. And the detail in it is very fine. That there's very small stuff in there, and it was almost all of it was painted on. Like they did the main shapes in sculpture, and then they painted on the creature. Um, so this had that dual effect because on one part you have the painted on detail that mimics Giga so closely. you, you, you better than this, you fucking die, you know. On the other hand, the movie itself like covers it because both the suit and the puppet are filmed in conditions that do not allow the beautiful painting and airbrush work that was done on the suits, which I feel is a shame because then you had the fans saying, "Oh my god, they turned the alien into this big fleshy thing," and a comment that I remember very clearly talked about the neck of the alien, because the suit has this big neck.
Yeah. I
But
often
that's
bring that
like a
up.
problem with the suit at large because in
Yeah.
wide shots you're supposed to see the puppet, which has the correct proportions. They do this all the time with movies. Jurassic Park also did it with the Raptor suits versus the Raptor animatronics in proportions. They changed. And ADI did this again on AvP when they did, the big animatronic alien that could do the movements, certain range of movements that the suit couldn't, especially in the neck. The proportions are different. It's like a movie trick, kind of like the mirror trick you see in certain movies. It's nothing different. And I feel like it's a kind of a shame that the ADI people, as always, get all the flack for it when it's a combination of factors that they're frequently not
Yeah, I mean, the puppet wasn't even really
responsible
their
for.
the
What?
puppet wasn't really their responsibility. They delivered it to Boss Studios, and Boss Studios further refined
Yeah,
the
and
puppet.
Boss Studios modified it because they took the foot and modified the foot to make it more easily maneuverable. Is that
Yeah,
a
I
word? Maneuverable. Okay.
yeah,
Um,
maneuverable, yeah.
And they did this rod puppet kind of thing, kind of animation like the Ranker in the third Star Wars movie. And they did it by freehand against a blue screen. And then I think Alien 3 was one of the first movies to experiment with a certain optical compositing method that involved the first computers with
Well,
compositing, I think.
I think it was the last photochemical
Yeah, it was
compositing. I think it was the
photochemical, but the photochemical process was computer controlled or something like that. I don't remember the specifics,
I
But they
but
were,
basically it allowed them to see the puppet in a proto-composited version of the
Yeah.
oh,
shot
you're talking about
in
the
real
laser.
time.
You're talking about the laser disc
Yeah.
thing. Yes. So
Yes,
they had this fancy rig where they could see it. They could see it against the live plates as they were testing it. Yes, which was really cool. You know,
yeah,
that
and
was
despite that, they couldn't like refine the compositing enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes, sometimes the alien, because of the compositing process, also changes sizes. Like there's shots where it looks enormous. It looks like
Yeah.
a freight train coming onto you, and then the compositing makes it look like it's smaller.
yeah.
Like in the next shot.
It's the puppet shots, isn't it?
Yeah.
Generally,
It's
where
all
They-
the puppet shots because the suit obviously had the same size throughout the film. I
Yeah.
think there was only one composite shot with the suit. I'm not even sure if it was a composite shot. But
Yeah, they had to match the focal length, and
and they
the
didn't.
frame rates as
Sometimes
well.
they didn't.
Hmm?
Sometimes they didn't.
Yeah, sometimes
So
they didn't. Sometimes they failed. So it was a new process because up until that point there had been a lot of stop motion, but this was not stop motion. This was like live action rod puppet
Yeah.
movement, which sometimes they filmed at slow motion and sometimes they filmed at
Yeah.
regular motion that they had intended to be in the film. And it
Yeah.
is flawed for sure, but I mean the movie was still nominated for an Oscar for best visual effects. It didn't win like Alien and Aliens did. I think they both won, right, Aaron?
I think
I can never remember the awards.
I think the greenish curse, the greenish tint curse comes from home media releases because it's not. I don't think it was as evident theatrically.
Yeah. But this was the first time we had ever seen an alien move like this, like could not be done with a suit. I mean, we had the stunt dummies in Aliens, but all the movement was from performers, and in Aliens it was great. The dancers, the stunt performers did an awesome job, but seeing it move so animalistically in this, I felt they did a tremendous job. And even the suit, I feel it's one of the most biomechanical alien designs. People call it
Yeah.
fleshy. It's nothing like the Resurrection design.
By the
If you
way,
look
Well,
at
no,
the
but that was
details.
later.
The resurrection design was basically a simplification of this one because the wolf kind of legs, the round kind of shapes, it's a deformation of this one.
I mean,
But
they,
yeah,
if,
it's a very different design.
yeah, if people want to have a good look at the rod puppet, the best sort of thing that out there on media would be the old Halcyon model kit because they decided to base that on the maquette thing instead of the costume. But I've got some things here about it. Because of the pose on the rod puppet, they had to lengthen it so it could sort of run on all fours. But they realized, the pose was designed around the approved maquette, and adding in a new stomach would make the creature look stupid in the stance we had him in. Because in the thing they've got is sort of like it's standing and it's prowling along, but it wouldn't have looked right. So even the model kit it was based on the dimensions of the rod puppet and the maquette, but they were using the kind of things they were doing with the suit on set. So it was a kind of like an amalgam of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do maintain that suit was way too fleshy. The rod puppet was great. The suit, I always remember when it comes down from the ceiling, grabs Andrews, you have those really thick arms and the neck. It doesn't look emaciated and exoskeletal enough.
That was a bulky stunt, dude.
He might well have been, but
No, it was. That is one of the few shots in
Yeah.
the film where it's not Tom in the suit.
okay, but
In terms of the
a
suit
lot of the
wise.
time, the suit does look a lot fleshier than I
I-
would have liked. The
I
rod
disagree
puppet's
there.
great,
Yeah.
but
I
the
mean,
rod puppet's got the composition.
I
systems.
There's
I
some
think the-
fantastic half shots of it where he doesn't look.
Yeah, I mean, the suit was never supposed to be filmed like from the waist down. They only shoot it from the torso up. And I do agree that it looks different, but there's a
Yeah.
point to be made here, which is we are the fans. We notice this stuff for a living, basically. A general audience member almost won't notice because these shots are so quick. They do not go frame by frame like you or I would do. And back in 1992, like it wasn't like a standard for movies to be scrutinized frame by frame like we do today, which is the reason there are some obvious goofs in like Alien or Aliens or The Thing or The Howling or whatever you have, or American Werewolf. There's goofs in there because back then they didn't really think, oh, there's gonna be some people grabbing a disc of this and inserting it and then going frame by frame. I don't
Well,
think
I
they
wasn't
did.
framing it. I was just going by casual viewer and watching the film, and I was noticing just as a casual viewer, it looked too fleshy, too thick to me, just as a casual viewer. The rod puppet stuff was great, but it had the other problem. So Alien 3 was this weird mix of you got the great rod puppet, but you got the compositing issues. The suit looks great with the lighting, but it's too thick. And they're the things which made me think this is the Alien film, which it's not selling to me. It feels like a real creature. Aliens did. The one in Alien 3, I think it's only that shot where it's right up against Ripley's face. It looks real then. Never elsewhere in the film it looks like a living creature. It looks like an effect. And that was my problem with the creature presentation to me.
Well, back in that time, right? Back in that time in the 80s and 90s, you had to have a certain suspension of disbelief, right? If you watch 1984's The Terminator, you see this stop motion animation of the T-800 endoskeleton coming your way. Or if you guys are fans of Ghostbusters, you have the terror dogs, and I don't think at the time, with all the gripes that Alien 3 was people had with Alien 3, I don't think the effects were one of them.
Oh, they were. That was the biggest thing always mentioned in the reviews of Alien 3. They just thought the effects were bad. That was always mentioned.
I don't know. See, I used to be a big Starlog reader, and all those complaints and stuff coming into the editorial pages and the comments pages was everything about the story, how they treated aliens, how they treated the alien, the problems with the life cycle. I never knew the effects was the biggest issue, because back then you would have to suspend was it belief or disbelief? What is the phrase?
Willing suspension of disbelief.
Disbelief. So, because until Jurassic Park and better CG technology, things weren't always going to look real. Now, granted, it did in Aliens, and it did in Alien because it hardly showed anything. But I don't know. From my impression here in the United States, the effects wasn't a big problem. And that's only just come to light later, in later years, and everyone says that's awful CG. So I don't even think ADI takes the blame for that, because everyone thinks it's CG artists.
I mean, what you just said about the first one being hidden in shadow, I remember at the time. This is again coming from my age, because I remember these things. There wasn't the internet, but there were reviews on the radio and TV. They were a much bigger thing back then, and I do remember a lot of people commenting on big problem with the alien in this film is that they keep showing it in full lighting. They're trying to make it they're not hiding it with numbers or shadow. And I came across an interview with Fincher in preparation for this, where apparently his approach was he wanted to make the alien not just a monster, he wanted to make it a character. And he said that's why he was putting it under full lighting. I think part of that might have been because he was so new. This was his first feature film. Whether he'd do the same thing again now, I don't know, but it would have benefited from taking more of a less is more approach with the lighting. I think a lot of the issues people had with the effects and visuals might have been avoided by doing that.
Yeah, that's fair.
See, I disagree on the comments on the suit though, because I never found this one fleshy. Sure, Resurrections is intentional because it's supposed to be a hybrid, but this one I've never found it fleshy. And some of the shots of it, I mean, I have a problem with some of the choreography of some of the alien reveals, like the first time we actually see it, and
It's just tickling a guy.
no, the stand up.
That was different.
So the stand up of when they see it in the tunnels, the candles in the wind moment. In the script, it's always described as this pool of darkness that you can't make anything from, and in the actual film, it's just this awful crouch stand up kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have a problem with some of that kind of stuff, but the suit itself, when you have the medium shots of it, I think it looks perfect. I love the runner.
I mean, I think we had to discern between the quality of the suit itself under certain circumstances and how it was employed in the movie. I recall reading, I think it was for one of my essays, that Fincher found it very difficult to work with the suit. So some of the suit issues that you see, the accidental, we see the waist, we shouldn't see the waist because it's not supposed to be seen, or the legs. They never had to film the legs, except for close-ups of the feet. I think in the Golek scene, in the Golek death scene, that you see a close-up of the descending feet. That's the suit, but regardless, you never see the full suit in the movie. It's always obscured in some way, especially from the waist down. But sometimes they miss their mark, and they had the footage and they had to choose the best of the footage. Another problem is, again, as I was mentioning before, that most of the detail in the suit is painted as opposed to sculpted. In the other movies, all the biomechanical detail, there was much more sculpted on detail. Some of it was cast from actual engine parts, in Alien and Aliens. Not this time. There was the runner was entirely sculpted in clay, and most of it was painted. So when you get the creature doused in blood, or as happens in the movie, molten lead or whatever, you're gonna lose some of that detail because it's not sculptural, it's painted. So as a consequence of that,
Yeah.
the suit looks fleshy. It's not. If you look at the behind the scenes photos of ADI guys like Gino Acevedo, who's one of the top painter guys for creatures, like he did the Independence Day aliens, but one inside and one outside, the Godzillas from the 90s version of Godzilla, and so on and so forth. He's a great painter. And when you see him painting on the runner, you see all that beautiful layered biomechanical detail, and that's lost in the movie because of how they put things onto the suit. The lighting, blood, mud, whatever it is, that makes that detail less evident. Less eye popping like it was in the other movies where it was front and center.
I think it's worth also saying, just a point of trivia that we're talking about Giga. Apparently, he didn't ingratiate himself with Fox by saying that the $5.5 million paid to Sigourney Weaver should have been spent on the alien. I can imagine how that might have gone across.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing with Alien 3, right? Is Giger's little involvement, and he had all these ideas, and they
Yeah.
just had to kind of move on without him, and he was not happy about that.
Overall, I find the effects charming. You know, I have lots of complaints with ADI, but not in this film. I enjoyed the runner, I enjoyed the effects, and very much loved Bishop. You know, David, I will agree to disagree about the newborn being one of their best. But here, you know, I pretty much like their work. So
I mean, I'm not talking about the newborn design-wise. Like we specify that technically, like on a how real it looks in a shot kind of level, because the newborn has translucent skin, the wet look of the KY jelly. It looks incredible. It looks lifelike. It looks like it's breathing because they also have like steam coming out of the side pores or whatever they are. It's harrowingly real looking. You can't disagree with the design choices. Some of the concept art for the newborn looks much better than the final result, even though the final result exemplifies perfectly what they were going for, which is like a abomination baby, a deformed baby kind of thing, hellish baby kind of thing.
we'll save
It
that for another
works,
podcast.
but you,
Yeah.
you may disagree with the
Yeah.
with the design choice, but the animatronic itself, like Bishop, is.
But a lot of these movies, like I said, to me, I find it charming now looking back at the effects, and I have no problem. I don't get distracted by it, and this movie has a lot of issues, and I really don't point to that as you know,
I'd
an
s-
issue.
I'd still love to see them redo the compositing though.
Yeah.
I
I hope they get a 4K cut with
it's-
that fixed.
I
If we
I
get
doubt
both
it.
versions, right?
Say
I
again.
would never. If we get both versions, I would never want to lose.
Oh no, God no.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I mean, is it like a fan nerdy kind of project? Like, I would just love to see that puppet looking good up on that screen, you know, without the matte lines and without the green tinge and everything like that. I mean, when we spoke to Charles, you know, about the assembly cut, and he was like, fuck it, just have some fan do it in CG. It probably looked better. But I'm like, yeah, but I want to see that original effect looking glorious, not
Didn't they-
necessarily just.
I think
Look,
Spawn
Aaron,
Effects-
I'm just happy, Aaron. They didn't. I'm a dog lover. I'm just happy they didn't go with that dog
Yes.
suit because I felt so
Oh,
bad when they were putting
Yeah.
that latex on that
It
dog,
looks
the
so awkward.
Whippet, yeah.
Yeah.
and then the head.
I don't know. I never saw it running along. I think it looked okay, but I don't know.
Oh no,
Well,
they
it
show,
was
they
all
show you it in
about,
motion.
I want some
Okay.
sponge.
It was all
Yeah.
a matter of blocking because they could have used that idea. They just didn't find enough time to find a proper blocking for it. Because the way the shot
Mm.
walked, and you see it in the behind the scenes stuff. It's just this little puppy going,
Yeah.
down the hall, and
It
it looks hilarious. Both films, Richard Hedlund, who was the VFX supervisor on this, he laughed every day for
Yeah.
it.
Well, they only
Because
did
it
a
was so
test.
funny.
They only did a
Yeah,
test.
they only
with the
did a
dog.
test
They
because they
auditioned for
realized
it, and the
that they
dog
couldn't
was.
do the
Yeah.
shot, and the shot was cut from the movie, and they reinstated it partially for the assembly cut with a CGI
CG.
Bambi bastard.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they redid the puppet as well in CG for the assembly cut, the Bambi Burster puppet.
But I remember reading some it might have been one of the interviews we did where it's been asked, would it be possible? And I think people have pointed out, well, the original sort of plates have been lost or something. They wouldn't be able to do replace the rod puppet with the CGI version now, or I don't know what the limitations would be.
I think it's just a pipe nerd dream more than anything, to be
Yeah.
honest, Eric.
Well, the
I don't-
compositing can be fixed because a fan has fixed it. Again, you can look at those videos and it looks a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, but if
Maybe-
you're
Yeah, but
doing
it's
a
just
new-
it's darkening the footage. That's why it looks better, because you
I mean,
don't see the
yeah.
matte lines as
I think-
obviously.
I think
Even
I
that
think you can
helps.
easily do away with it like extensively. Like it would be a very extensive work, but you can mask, you can color grade and things like that. It can be fixed, but it needs to be like an organized paid
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
And nobody
it's-
is willing to
We need the 4K anthology.
Well,
Yeah,
no
I mean,
one.
even with that, it wouldn't be perfect because there are some sequences like I forget who's Pete Postlethwaite's character.
David.
David, yeah, and he's frantically trying to push this button, and the alien's meant to be running down the corridor, but it looks like it's levitating in midair, and it's just
Yeah.
like moving its
Yeah.
limbs, and it's
in
not
the
moving.
commentary, Tom and Alec, they said that's one of the less effective
Yeah.
shots. One.
Should we talk about some of the acting though? I don't think we've touched on
Okay.
that yet.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
we
one of the
mentioned
film's strengths.
Pete
Oh god,
Postlethwaite,
yeah. The entire fucking cast is brilliant. Let's be honest.
and I think this was the first movie I ever saw him in, and then I loved him in The Lost World when he got to be like just such a badass in that one. But it's always interesting in the special features hearing God, who's Golic's character? Who's his actor?
Oh,
Paul
McGann.
McGann. Paul
Yeah.
McGann.
It's always
Doc-
interesting hearing him
Doctor
talk
Who.
about
Eighth
the
Doctor,
film,
the Eighth Doctor,
where he's like,
the Doctor Who
my
fans.
character just disappeared, which I think is a bit of a mistake. If you remember that. And yeah, Golic just disappears in the theatrical cut, and that's an issue with the film, is some of those characters just go missing. But I feel like the acting for this movie is really well done. You know, Charles S. Dutton, Sigourney Weaver, they were both great. Everyone did their job really well in this film. I think the problem was just with the characters themselves and getting the audience to care about the characters and telling the characters apart when everyone was running down hallways. And yeah, that was admittedly a bit of an issue, but that wasn't
But
any fault of the cast.
Yeah, the whole choreography and geography of the chase sequence at the end just makes it confusing and makes no sense anyway. Because just looking at it from trying to understand the layout of what they're trying to do, you don't have any reference for it, so it makes no sense as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, you know.
Me too.
There's a great quote from McGann in one of the set visits that Empire magazine did, and McGann says, "There are more producers around here than actors. I wondered who the hell they were at first. It's like having an extra fucking audience for every scene. You can't get a clear picture of who wants what. It gets changed as we go along. I don't know what they're doing here. Rewriting some of the script? Getting in the way? Fuck knows." And that was him just speaking before the film had been released.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we tend to talk about how we now know a lot about how terrible the production was, but even back then, you know, the trades knew it was.
Oh yeah, people were being journalists were being warned when they did these on-set exposés, and they said, "Just expect the unexpected. Things are going to be weird. Just going for that mindset." And they found that people were just speaking very candidly about it. So it's
yeah, I'm surprised the publicists weren't more on that, to be honest.
know,
but
yeah.
completely
when
different
you go
time,
back
I guess.
and read this stuff, yeah.
But no, damn. I honestly, I think this is some of Sigourney's best acting in the entire series.
Yes.
It's just
her and Dutton, they have some.
There was good
I think
chemistry.
this was the only time they'd acted together, but yeah, their chemistry was amazingly good. And I mean, especially for that time. I mean, I know he did eventually get killed off, but he would have been. This is the early 90s. You rarely got like basically an action or horror film where the black guy plays a prominent leading role. He's the one that's putting all the other guys in their place and stuff. Dylan was kind of a very almost breakthrough role in a lot of ways, but he just sold that he has gravitas in that role so well.
It's a shame he didn't get to keep his dreadlock from the earlier scripts in the book. Because, I mean, you know, you were talking, everybody's talking earlier about everybody looking like bald white blokes with British accents not standing out. And, you know, like one of the early concepts was that Dylan had this dreadlock, just this single, you know, sort of dreadlock in defiance of the planet and defiance of the lice and everything like that. And it's a shame he didn't get to keep that as his, you know, visual.
Well, he had his
character, I suppose.
glasses. That was his
True,
visual
yeah.
distinctive.
I personally like the idea of him still sticking with some hair as a fuck you to the environment, but
I just wish we had more character development with Dylan. because I still don't
Everyone.
know. Well, yeah, everyone.
I
Well,
mean, people that didn't die off early on. I mean, even Andrew's got none, but the only one who had some was Aaron. That was
we
it.
had some with Clemens, right?
And he should have been around
And
for
he
longer, honestly.
Yeah, he should have been around. But Dylan, same thing. I mean, because it was really Ripley and Dylan toward the end of the movie, well, basically until the lead pours, which, by the way, guys, I don't understand why was he still so insistent of Ripley escaping? I mean, this was the perfect time to pour the lead on both of them. Why was this,
I think he wanted a guarantee that it wasn't going to get out. It came across that way to me, but I think that's a valid observation. You'd think, yeah.
It made no sense to me. I get it once it focused on Dylan and he realized, okay, it's after me. I got to stay down here. But prior to saying that, this is it. This is when you kill the alien. Why not stay down with it and hold it, right? So
I mean, you could say maybe he was also thinking if Ripley's in danger from the lead, would the alien just run out with her or something? But that's all just supposition, I think.
God, could you imagine the runner bursting out of the lead with this charred and melted corpse?
So like Mighty Mouse.
That would be very nihilistic.
But I mean that was again another thing is, when I was saying earlier about why is the alien not taking all these hosts, why is the alien not taking Ripley and gluing her to a wall so she can't risk the queen embryo?
Yes,
that struck me from my very first viewing. I have to say, I was thinking, why isn't it just cocooning her? Because
speaking of that, like I love the scene where she finally goes after it, right? Goes down to the basement.
You are obsessed with that scene.
I am, because the scene cuts and you see it in the special features. You see her encounter with the alien and the alien just above her in that scene. And I just thought, again, that low camera angle that Fincher does so much in this movie, like it just really worked there. And I would have liked to have seen that scene play out more. This movie has so many frustrating moments, like in terms of what you guys said. Like the movie is just not scary. And
it's not really horror at all, is it?
It's more of a drama.
It's a chase.
But when you have 3 times the terror on the poster, and so
a labyrinth movie,
the scene that gets closest to scary for me is, and it's one of the darkest scenes in the movie, where you have all the candles and the candles are slowly starting to go out, and it's kind of that weird air of mystery, like, is the alien blowing out the candles? Is it gotten to that? Like, that's so creepy. And then the alien just pops up and starts tickling the guy, and I'm like, you had the setup going so strong there, and then it just falls apart in that scene.
I remember the scene with the basement, and I remember thinking, oh, they're going to go like Lambert, but with a twist. This is going to be so tension-filled. And they cut away. And I understand why. It's a less is more thing. But they could have done so much more. They could have built on... We saw how it reacted to her once. How is it going to react a second? Because she's now got a motivation for forcing it into action. There's so much that could have been done... cut away, and it's like the scene cuts itself away at the knees just as it gets interesting.
It's the same thing with the Covenant shower scene we saw recently. Like, sometimes more is more, and I feel like Alien 3 has a few of those moments.
I mean, what do you mean? You say you bring the shower scene as a positive example?
So in Covenant, there was an extended version of the shower scene, which was just shown recently, and in the movie, I don't think it works. I think it cuts away too soon, and it's like cliche kind of slasher. But for having those extra few moments, it's just that much more creepy. Now, you can make an argument about jumping through the glass, and that might.
Have you said what it actually does? Have you told David what it does?
I've seen the scene. I've seen the extended scene.
It just approaches her.
I mean, with the tail, the tail around her, pulling it towards the alien, it's like, ooh. Oh yeah.
I mean, I cannot unsee that scene again because the leaked version on YouTube had the porno
with the terrible music.
Yeah. Oh, that's what made it.
It was porno music. Okay, so I cannot unsee that. So that the scene is ruined forever for me. But regardless of that, the basement scene might be my favorite scene in the entire movie, alongside the birth of the queen and and the autopsy. No, not the autopsy. The funeral because of the
Yeah.
editing. But
The funeral.
the basement scene was brilliant because in one shot it's the suit, then she stabs into it, and it's a pipe. And I love that editing.
I wish there was
Because-
more of that, like hallucinate again, kind of pulling it from
Exactly.
Vincent Ward's thing.
But it's
That
a classic.
you know,
It's a classic cinematic move, which I really enjoy.
Didn't the Alan Dean Foster novelization have her finding like the alien had molted? And I don't know if it was that scene that he was reinterpreting that way.
that rings about right, but I'm not sure.
Because she finds the alien, like it's grown, and she finds like a molted skin of the alien, and it's like, oh, it's bigger, and then it's like the same alien. But I got a feeling it might have been that scene, and I don't know if he was wrongly interpreting it or what. Because I mean, clearly it might. You don't know if it's because she's carrying a developing chest burster that she's having these weird hallucinations or what. But there's a lot that could have been done with that as well. Beyond just
there's a lot of
think
concepts
it's,
that aren't explored properly.
I think it's a good again, going by the car crash trauma kind of plot line. It's her dwindling sanity that we are witnessing. You know, she's losing it basically.
Also, I want to know for everybody, regardless if you prefer the theatrical or extended cut, which ending do you prefer? Where the chest burster comes out or stays in?
Always have the creature effect at the end. That's a rule.
I will say, I noticed on the assembly cut, people talk about like Golic is reinserted, blah blah blah. It's a little tiny thing. There's this slightly extended meeting between Clemens and Andrews, and right at the end, I noticed the little dippy bird in Andrews' office, and I'd never seen it before. And I was like, the little calling card of the series, and it was actually cut out of Alien 3.
Yeah.
But what about Adam's question?
I already said earlier on, I think there's the version where it doesn't erupt, the music edit, it feels wrong. You're waiting for a climax, doesn't happen. But then in the theatrical version, it's great, but I never understand why she should be in absolute agony with this thing coming out of her
or
rib
just
cage,
straight
and
up
she just
dead. Or just straight up
cuddles
dead.
it.
Because because movies employ like visceral logic as opposed to like literal logic a lot of the time. So the scene is basically supposed to, let me put this into words.
It's movie doing movie.
It's supposed to show Ripley coming at peace with the fact that with her sacrifice,
it's a catharsis.
this is done. This is it. Nobody's gonna suffer anymore. So she's at peace with it, and she's cradling, the alien like a baby. It's ironic.
Realistically,
darkly ironic.
She shouldn't be
I
having
know.
that.
I know.
How about you,
But it's a
AJ?
movie. My man, it's a movie. We have sound in space.
But
in the first
that's
movie.
why I say neither version is satisfying. One's a bit WTF, but it works well flow-wise. The other one, it works well logically, but the music goes do 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 do, and it doesn't. You go, oh, something's missing there. Something's not right.
I love that track.
What do you think about it, AJ?
It's beautiful. That.
So I prefer the chest burster. Both scenes look awkward in its own way, but I do. I always came with the impression that she was at peace with finally extinguishing, the alien threat once and for all. Maybe, and saving humanity in the process, because she's always worried about this coming back to Earth. The only thing I would have liked more, and this is also partially being an Aliens fan, is for Hicks and Newt to be alive somewhere, that somehow her and Bishop were separated from the ship in the beginning of the movie. She was the only one infected.
I
mean,
hang on.
He was still alive. He was standing right there watching her fall.
Hang on.
I have good news.
Let me get this out. Let me get this out first, and then you can tell me your good news. So I just have this moment that I would love, where she's falling, and then she doesn't know where Newt is. She doesn't know where Hicks is. She as far as she knows, they're on Soloco still, and but she sees like flashes, visions of maybe Newt like graduating some sort of school, or her and Hicks smiling together, walking somewhere, and she, at some piece that she not just saved the universe, but she saved both of them, and they could live on. And to see
Like
this little
Terminator
like,
2.
well,
When
no, they were
Sarah's
not.
having that sort of dream and she's seeing Kyle Reese and like a younger self with a child at the
Yeah,
playground.
but these would almost be like like pictures, flashes, and
Yeah.
you see them as she's falling, and then she's at peace with her sacrifice. That you don't quite know what happened to Hicks and Newt, but I would have felt this would be a better ending. That, yeah, you see this hero of this great sci-fi franchise die, and this is what she did it for. It's personal to her, not just.
I mean, you could go further and you could say you have flashbacks to like Kane, Parker.
Yeah.
A lot of characters that meant something to her, and that's her lead up, that's her journey up to this.
And then you just see some future shots, and like, are those real shots? Is it just something she hopes for them, and then she hits the lava? And I think it would have been just so much more powerful if I could have seen that. But to answer your question, Adam, yeah, chestburster, I think all the way.
I used to prefer the chest burster because I was on the same page with you, David. It's like, oh, we get to see another creature effect. We get to see like a small alien queen, which looks really cool. But I do feel like the movie is more impactful for me where it doesn't erupt and she's made this choice even though she could have very well been saved. And the assembly cut also fixes the impact with the lead and
the effect. Yeah,
Yeah.
the halo. Yeah.
I can't agree with what you're saying, but I think that at least if the chestburster is not erupting, that we should see like an internal shot of it wiggling, things like that. We need that kind of emotionally to see that the alien's still inside.
You see, I very much agree with Adam there. The possibility that it's not the alien forcing her hand. It bursting forces her hand. But it not bursting means that there was a chance that she could have survived. It makes that sacrifice. It gives it a bigger impact. But on the other hand, I also do like to see the creature effect. But I completely agree with Eric in that her being alive to be able to grab hold of it and give it a good cuddle.
It's a baby.
But no one believes that, right, Aaron? No one in the audience believes she would be kept alive. Everyone thinks it's BS, right?
Well, as soon as Bishop's...
We'll take it out of you. We'll kill it.
When Bishop says, you must let me have it, it's a
we'll
beautiful specimen.
Yeah.
That's
you don't have to... you don't have to think that he's going to kill it, but you don't have to think he's going to kill her.
Yeah, it's like they didn't kill Morse. They just transferred him to another prison. So
yeah,
well, they shot him in the leg in front of Ripley, and they killed 85. And granted, 85 hit him with a wrench or something.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to really forgive that one, are you? My ear's hanging off the side of my face. I'm not going to.
But even he survived in some of the other drafts.
Yeah. Should we summon the 375 users who have contributed to the thread on the forums? Is Bishop 2 an android or a human?
that is on it. Go with AvP
30 years later, and it's amazing.
Back in 1992, this ending got a lot of comparisons to Terminator 2, though. Since you brought that up, Eric, this lowering yourself into a lava, a fiery death for the humanity, right? For the rest of humanity to live. And, in Terminator 2, it was the T-800, and in Alien 3, it was Ripley. And so there was a lot of comparisons made back then. I never quite went there, but other people did.
Yeah, that did come up during production. Is this Fincher? Fincher says... because this would have been Terminator 2 released in 91, because you had the Vat of Molten Metal. And Fincher says, we were about 2 weeks into shooting when someone learned about the similarity, but we were just too far into it to change it. So there are a lot of people who said, "Oh, the reshoots were due to this, that, and the other." Apparently, it was complete coincidence. They just happened to both have a molten metal sort of ending. So
And that's
it
got
does
to
happen.
wound as well. That's got to wound him as well. It's like, damn it, we didn't know about this.
Yeah.
And again,
Imagine
it
seeing
was
that and go,
all for
"Oh."
naught because Bishop 2 already had a queen and a whole bunch of aliens in LB426. And Hicks was right there watching her fall.
You know, I also saw this interesting parallel, and I always relate to Terminator 3 and Alien 3, you know, where you had these iconic franchises that were knocked down a peg with this third movie that, you know, the Terminator 3 happened much later, I think in 2003, with the absence of Linda Hamilton. And this one was the absence of Newton Hicks. And they both received like similar audience reactions, and it felt like suddenly these perfect franchises were no longer perfect anymore. And I always found
that is it's not something I agree with, but Alien 3 at that point, it became this sort of, oh well, all third movies are cursed. Now I don't go with that. I quite like Jaws 3. A lot of people don't.
Dude,
I quite like
Jaws 3, come on.
But you
Was it?
do
There's
Never-ending-
Jurassic and Back
never-ending
to the
story
Future
tree.
as well, isn't there?
yeah, but
Back to the
there
Future
is
3 was
this
pretty good.
legend, and it did once Alien 3 came out.
Spider-Man
It
3.
became this urban legend. All third movies of a series, they're all cursed. They're all cursed to be awful, and that made
Well,
up this
I mean,
pattern. But a lot of
I
people
wouldn't-
came to love it.
I wouldn't put Alien 3 and Terminator 3 in the same bag. Either, you know, qualitatively or, you know, impact-wise speaking, because Alien 3, you know, they did a sequel 5 years later, and Terminator took like 7 years, 8 years for another one to be made, because Salvation was in 2009, wasn't it? That's 8 years, which is a
I
long
think
time.
I think I
years.
get the point that AJ's making, that the third film was just deflating compared to the first two, and I agree
Oh
with
yeah,
that. Both
that's
franchises
true.
definitely
And
had
both
that.
I remember,
Aliens and Terminator 2 felt like it concluded, right? It felt like
yeah,
your characters came to a good place and the story was over.
Yeah.
And then boom, we have another movie where suddenly there's missing characters in both films, and you have an audience negatively reacting to it. They were just as upset of Linda Hamilton not being in Terminator 3 as they were Michael Biehn.
Yeah.
And Alan Dean Foster tried to make him survive. Did you ever hear about that? I can't remember.
Yeah, I heard about
No.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, he in one of his drafts of the novel, he I don't think he ever said how he did it. I think it might have just been they were in a different EEV that went off elsewhere. So they didn't come down to the
Rings a
planet.
bell.
I mean,
We have aliens,
would it-
colonial marines.
Would it
yeah,
have worked?
we had our savior.
See, I like them dying again in terms of the whole fuck the world, fuck your happiness, fuck the life kind
Well,
of.
that's you, Aaron.
I know that's me, but
I think sorry, finish your thought, Aaron.
no, I was going to sort of lead it into. So, what do you guys feel about Hicks and Newt? Because, like, come on, guys, my online fucking alias is Hicks. I love Hicks, but it was just a reflection of the unfairness of the real world, and I'm not sure if it'd have had the right impact. Well, I guess maybe if she thought they were dead, maybe the audience didn't. But
It'd
then
be
again,
more of a sacrifice if she knew they lived, right? If she could go away and get this thing removed, and she could go live off with him and maybe start a family, and wouldn't it be more of a sacrifice if you know you have loved ones out there that you want to live for?
I mean, she's alone. She has nothing left. I think that strengthens the sacrificing because she has nothing left.
It's
Again,
easy.
going by the, I mean, again, going by the car crash kind of plot line, you know, reference. She has nothing left to lose, so she can do the ultimate sacrifice. It's already been done for her. As for the two of them dying, I used to be violently opposed to it. Like I was one of those hashtag Hicks and Newt guys. Again, I learned to appreciate it for what it is. It's a trauma. It's the inciting incident for Ripley's character development in this movie. I do disagree with the people that said, it's the best course to take, because otherwise it would have been like a family in space, which is not the case. But I usually like to use it as an argument, for making this the only narrative path that could have been taken. With that said, I do enjoy it, enjoy what it brings to the movie, especially the funeral scene, which is editing wise brilliant. We haven't mentioned him yet, but the editor of the movie is the same one as Alien, Terry Rawlings, and and despite some editing question marks sometimes because of the rushed schedule, you can see some narrative similarities with Alien, especially when the alien dies, because you see it dying 3 times, as just as you watched, the alien being ejected towards space 3 times in the original movie. There's a lot of very cool editing stuff in Alien 3 actually, and that funeral scene, that's marketing. You cannot blame a movie's marketing on the movie, because it's handled by different people, especially if the director is not this big name, which Fincher wasn't at the time. So you cannot really say the movie sucks because it's not what the marketing told me was going to be. Otherwise you get Splice mismarketed as hell, and it's a great movie. The 2014 Godzilla was mismarketed as big all hell and was a good movie. It just wasn't what you were going to be promised.
I didn't like it.
But it's still a good movie.
I don't know if I'd
To
call it
me,
good.
I mean,
Yeah, I would not call it good.
The point here at large, regardless of what you think about the specific movies, is that the marketing does not reflect the final product.
I think we're
here's what
past
the
that
trailers
point though
do.
now.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't think anyone's complaining.
Okay, so I did want to touch on a piece of marketing for Alien 3, because you do have the infamous On Earth with the original
Yes.
teaser. Like, where did that ever come from, Aaron?
Nowhere.
Nowhere. There was never a draft where it was on Earth. So I want to know who's responsible for misleading the audience like that. Because
I remember an issue of the, I think was it Titan or Dark Horse, the one that the Aliens comic, which came out every month. And God, I don't have it on me.
It was Titan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're reprinting Dark Horse stuff.
I remember now. Someone out there will have access to them, but
no, that's a lie. It was Dark Horse UK. Sorry, Titan did the Alien Resurrection magazine later on.
Right. Okay. Someone out there will have the collection, but I remember there being in the news section, I think there was just a small article, and I think they asked the person who'd sort of put that together. It was such a great trailer. It still is. Look it up on YouTube. On Earth, everyone can hear you scream, and everything about it's great. And I think it said something about Giga was involved, or he was going to be involved or something. But yeah, it was one of those things where they didn't have anything specific, but they just wanted to they were just sort of like just kicking ideas about, and there was something about aliens in subway tunnels and stuff.
I heard aliens in like fields, right? Similar to that Marvel comic.
Well, that was Ward. Yeah, that was Ward.
I do remember them mentioning subway tunnels on Earth. Now, I don't know the background. This is just pure memory. But
you'll have to ask Lee, because he's got all the magazines.
Okay, Lee, look it up.
Well, he might not bother listening to this. You'll have to message him.
I will actually.
I thought I read something about cornfields or something like that.
Yeah, that was Alien 3.
That was also
that was Alien 3. That was the Vincent Ward and John Fazio thing. Yeah.
But
that was
there was
Alien
an
Covenant.
article about that advert that was put out, and they apparently just kicking ideas between themselves, and they came up with it. The question is, who at Fox authorized that to be released? Because it would have had some sort of budget to at least put the egg model together, it would have needed at least, even if it's just $50 or something, someone would have used money to
$50.
create it. It wasn't just a still painting. So,
Well, it gives the
that's the
sense that
question.
studios really didn't know how to build a franchise at this
Yeah.
time. They
It
thought they
might have
needed a
literally
trilogy.
been, because we do know Fox was under the gun. They knew they had to put
They were
something out.
pissing money out.
Yeah, they had to put something out for legal reasons, and purely guesswork. My feeling is, yeah, if we put any old thing just to show we're working on something, that might keep shareholders or whatever at bay, and release it. And it did cause, even pre-internet days, it did cause a wave of people going, "Oh, have you seen that? Yeah, that's
And
interesting."
that was their mistake, because it was such a bad move to set up that audience expectation
Yeah.
of, oh my god, it's going to be on Earth now. This is going to
Right?
be like the ultimate alien battle, and then you have what we got. So yeah,
Yeah.
and you see through the retcons we've had throughout the years, like Colonial Marines, like the Alien 5 that almost happened. Like, people wanted to undo what happened.
Even Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Which is weird, because she was the one that wanted to die so hard in the third movie. They wanted to keep her alive initially.
Well, she also wanted to have sex with the alien, and she got that wish in Resurrection partly. So,
Wasn't it her idea to have sex with Clemens, though? She wanted a sex
Yes,
scene.
she wanted a love scene in this. Yeah.
Yeah.
which didn't actually get shown. It was just an assumed.
Hey, it works. I mean, there's a relationship there.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be shown. I'm just saying it's weird. She wanted it
Yeah.
in there, and substance-wise, it isn't. So
I love the
it's whatever.
chemistry between her and Charles Dance as well.
Yeah,
Mm.
and that was why, again, it was a shame when his character got off so quickly. Another thing that was kind of
Yeah,
weird.
but life's
was,
unfair, Adam.
I know, but the movie had already shown how unfair life was. And it's like, it's even more unfair. And I'm like, God, movie.
Apparently, if
give me a
you get
break.
character
Like-
development, you die.
Yeah, or you don't, like Andrews.
It's interesting because it does seem to skip between co-leads for her. You know, you have Clemens early, oops, dead, and then it sort of skips between Aaron. It doesn't kill him, but then pushes. The disagreement pushes her towards Dylan. So it's like it moves between these secondary lead characters, and nobody really has time to.
I think they were going for not just to push this idea of she's brought evil into our community, but I get the impression they were trying to push this everyone who's close to her dies sort of thing. But because it doesn't quite, it's another of these things that they just touch on, but they don't really run with. So,
or how about let's get some growth with Ripley, right? She's cocky, I must make you feel uncomfortable, and injects herself among these murders and rapists, and then almost gets gang raped to rock music, and and then why doesn't she say, why am I like that? I would love a moment like that, her sitting with Clemens is like, what was I thinking? I have this personality trait that something questioning her motives, because obviously, even though he was a asshole, she should have listened to Andrews, right? Or she should be at least walking around with a escort, at least.
Yes. I mean, in fairness, when she goes to get the bishop droid, she is a little mentally preoccupied, but you would think she's wanting... He says, no, I can't go with you. You'd think she'd go, okay, I'll postpone this. I'll go somewhere I'm safe.
Yeah, but I mean, the time was of the essence at that point, wasn't it? It was, oh shit, I think aliens are dying. I need to confirm this. Let's crack on with it, kind of thing.
But like, what would it have been? 10 minutes later?
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have been.
It was. If you've been in meetings, Eric, you know how long they take. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Hey, although, can I just say how much I love that scene as well? The whole calmly set up between him, Andrews getting him tea, and then just fucking exploding on him.
Oh yeah, that was well done. That a lot of that was down to Brian Glover's acting skills. He played that part really well.
Again, that was all assembly cut, because in the movie it opens right when he's yelling at him.
And I love Clemens's line as well. I find you unpleasant to be around.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Are you?
guys, I had a hard. It was hard for me to get a perspective of how much time passed. Do you guys have an idea from her?
And I always took the gestation time as just the queen
Yeah,
takes
it's the
longer
queen.
to
Yeah,
gestate.
I think that was
So.
pretty much it.
Fansplain, yeah.
Podbell.
Actually, how much, she says she's been dealing with this all her life, right? Or feels like she's
Yeah,
been dealing with alien. How long has she been awake?
Yeah,
Between
not long.
Alien,
But
well, you
Aliens.
don't know how long passes between her waking. Well,
And all
I
the
mean,
her
nightmares,
waking hours.
all the
would
nightmares she
be-
had to deal with after Alien. Like,
well, no, I mean, the film kind of makes it a little unclear as to how much time passes between her waking up and being sacked to then everything taking place on the colony. Because it's like, oh, she's around long enough to get licensed to be a power loader. I wonder how long that
I think
course
it's
is.
at least half a year she's probably been working the.
I mean, I think SM has sorted it all properly anyway in the timeline stuff, but I always felt like there should have been more time between her waking up and her going out. But that's a different film.
Technically, it's been like over half a century, but
yeah,
waking hours, yeah.
It is a bit of an exaggeration, but I think AJ, man, when you've spent most of your recent waking hours being chased by this damn thing, it kind of takes over what
from her perspective, like 2-3 weeks, but
well, for our perspective,
it's a great line.
For our perspective, she's been dealing with this all her life.
Yeah.
But from her perspective, this has got to feel like boom, 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 boom. It's just like almost every waking moment she's dealing with this.
Especially with those nightmares she kept on having.
Yeah.
I mean, that really did her.
What David was suggesting about her going mad, maybe, and seeing visions of aliens. I never once got that impression, but I would have loved that because, geez, how many times can one person go through this? Right? That was a line in Die Hard 2. I can't believe the same thing has happened to the same guy twice. And it's a lot for one person. So I actually would have loved to seen her break down. Really break down instead of like making a joke again when Newt was dead, about you're going to give me some clothes or I'm going to walk around this way. I would have loved just to see her break down because, God, her life has just been hell, right? After this latest revelation.
That was maybe down to Weaver's influence on this, because I think from her perspective, she wanted to see Ripley rise above that being the expectation. Because, I mean, especially in Aliens, she had faced her demons down. She was like, okay, I'm not going to go through that anymore. But it would have definitely been... I think a lot of it was to do with probably effects budget as well. You don't know what they would have liked to have done hallucination-wise if they'd have had the effects budget, but who knows?
But ultimately, at the end of it all, I'm still fucking amazed it's as good as it is.
Yeah.
After everything.
I mean, there's still themes in there. There's still, decent effect. Well, I'll say decent effects. It's a lot better than I feel like it has any right to be, given everything that went off with it.
Yes. Yeah. It's when you know the history of the production and.
But then is that really fair? You shouldn't really need to have that knowledge to be able to give it a break, but.
No, but to judge it fairly, you need to take everything into consideration. Yeah.
And there were great. Sorry, go ahead, David.
No, you go ahead.
There were great things that it added to the lore. We got the first instance of the DNA reflex, the logo.
Which had been a thing that
since the start,
Ridley Scott had thought for the first one, which was cool to say.
And we got the logo with the queen embryo fetus, which has become like an iconic alien image, and we had the whole space beast thing that was kind of added to the lore.
Well, that's Resurrection. That's not Alien 3.
Yeah, I know, but it just shows Alien 3 has had an impact and a lasting effect on this franchise. Mm-hmm. That it is a worthy Alien film, regardless of the misgivings I have about it or what I would have wanted it to be. I think you're right, Aaron, that it is a beautiful wreck in terms of what it is, and it should be appreciated and should be delved into. I was really disappointed we didn't get another J.W. Rinsler book, and unfortunately he passed.
And now we can't.
but I feel that there's so much to explore there, and for studios to learn about interference and letting a director do what a director needs to do.
I mean, this film is used. I mean, it was in mine. I know it wasn't other people's online that I've seen speak about it, but this is an example in a lot of screenwriting and a lot of development film
yes.
courses and stuff like that. This is the perfect example of development hell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of a random note here. I always thought it was weird. I know it was just done for budgetary reasons, but I always thought it was weird that Michael Bishop and the Wayland Corporation arrived in another Conestoga class ship. And I know it was just so they could reuse the model. And they just waved that away in Colonial Marines again. I know I keep bringing that up, but I find that such a fascinating fan fiction, like, oh, we're going to make you appreciate Alien 3. We're going to fix Alien 3 kind of exercise.
They did, not in the way they intended.
I have to ask.
I mean, I think that was, sorry, before you go, Ade, because this is something you raised earlier, I'm sure there must be a fucking word for this, but when something after is so bad that it makes you then reevaluate the thing beforehand,
Yep.
that
The Predator.
No, Predators was always good. Shut your mouth. But there must be a term for that kind of thing, and I also think that's a little unfair, to be honest.
Yeah,
as well.
hindsight. It's called hindsight. That's what it is.
I was just going to say, with Michael Bishop, why didn't they give him a hazmat suit? Apparently,
well,
everyone else was worried about
that goes to the heart of, is he a droid or not? And we'll never know.
And again, that's another thing Colonial Marines said. Oh yeah, he was a droid after all, and he did have white blood after all. It's like, wait, what? So
stop talking about Colonial Marines, for God's sake, Adam.
I just love how it intertwines with Alien 3. Like, I'll whenever that scene happens where it shows what really happened when the EEV ejected, I just can't help but laugh because it's so funny. Oh, there was just a switcheroo with Hicks, and
it's the ultimate fanboy masturbation kind of thought process.
Well,
it's extremely funny.
I will say, more to do with the magical teleporting egg, because that will never be explained. But that
Charles de Lazarica tried to, and the menu.
It doesn't work because it's in a big long corridor with Silico on the metal. But the whole film, this goes more to the cinematography of the film. Whether or not you personally would like Alien 3 to be a dream or not, it does visually and tonal wise have a very dreamlike quality to it. I don't know, it's something about, like, it looks like you're looking through oil at parts, but it does feel very dreamy. Yeah. Whereas if you juxtaposition that against Cameron and Scott's sort of industrialized, these are real people sort of thing, there is a dreamy quality to it, and I do find that just interesting from a filmmaking point of view.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if they would have explained it away as a dream in Alien 5, and if they would have
could do still.
Yeah.
Should we wrap up though, boys? Is it about time?
That would piss off a lot of people.
3-hour discussion for Alien 3.
Well, to be fair, about half hour, that's probably us pissing around before we start.
Yeah.
Right, like, remember all the people, like, when Alien Camp, as I like to call it, was gonna be like a real possibility. All the Alien 3 people were like, "Oh, this is just lazy filmmaking."
I wouldn't have liked it. I'm gonna be honest. I would not have liked him to have.
I wouldn't mind it either, because we're not used to a whole multiverse stuff. So like an alternative narrative without crossovers, like an actual acknowledgement inside the narrative of a multiverse. Like, without that, we just need an alternate canon. It wouldn't be an insult to Alien 3. I mean, you can pop it in whenever you want if you have the Blu-ray. So
I think
that's not a thing anymore. So
different
would be
multiverse don't work in Alien.
Nobody would be happier for Alien 3 to be discarded than David Fincher, regardless of
I mean,
much
end
do
of the
you
day,
think
it's-
Nobody
this
hates
person
it
was?
more than me, right?
as
That was
much as
the
it's
thing.
been reevaluated and stuff like that because of the assembly cut and the knowledge, it's never going to change the fact that the people who made it out a fucking nightmare. Well, a lot of the people had a nightmare of an experience on it, no more so than
I mean,
the
that
head
can
guy.
kind of be said for Aliens. I mean, Cameron had that temperament on Aliens, but with Aliens, you had like, under pressure, diamonds are forged. Alien 3, not so much, but it has become in later years a cult status film. I don't quite understand why, but as years have gone on, more to do with the assembly cut, but it doesn't make it a radically different film, but it's definitely achieved cult status now as a film.
Even the scene where the alien is like, creeping right next to her neck has been parodied so many times and referenced so many times. And I
Even
know
with staplers.
Goldenthal's score, you can get like an extended cut of the score, I think, right, Aaron? That has like a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't in the film.
Yeah, Lala Records did one, I think, a deluxe edition.
But I get what you're saying too, David, in terms of like, I don't think you need to interpret it as a multiverse, but you know me, Aaron, I've never been averse to the alternate continuities, and Alien 3 has presented that with its legacy. We've had all these interpretations of Gibson now, like Michael Biehn finally got to be in Alien 3. Like, how awesome is that? And we got to see that in a comic form and in a novel form, and maybe they'll do the same with Vincent Ward's, and we almost got that with Alien 5. So
I mean,
and we had a different interpretation with the comics too. Like that was initially kind of an Alien 3 thing. So
And
Just
why are you
speaking-
getting that, right? You're getting that because there's a hunger for a different continuation after
Yes,
Aliens.
yes.
It's just like Terminator 2. How many movies did we get that discard the previous movies and take place right after Terminator 2? And there's comics and graphic novels and unfortunately, I mean, a lot of people feel, I think all of us maybe feel, that the assembly cut is an improved version or improved version. Some people think extensively, like fiendishly inventive on our forums. But this is not going to be the version that people see most of the time if they're catching it on streaming or it's playing on cable. They're going to see the theatrical cut. And it's always going to be regarded as inferior to some degree. And for us fans, we love it. But for the people that just pick great movies, they got the 2 Aliens films. They only pick a couple diehards, whatever they are, and they go on their shelf, and they don't come to community websites. And that's why we're never going to get a Rinsler book, even if he was alive, for Alien 3, because I don't think they would think there's a market for that. There's just not enough people consume aliens.
I completely disagree with you.
it's going to be
and
fans
I always
buying those kind of books.
Yeah,
It's all
and I
about
always have.
finances. It's about, that book is
Look-
expensive, Aaron. That book is expensive.
I mean, if
Didn't Rinsler
what-
say there was no demand for it? I think Rinsler.
no, he didn't say demand.
He
It
said
was
the
that
studio didn't want to do
they
it.
didn't want it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why
I-
is that? If they could make money hand over fist, they would go for it.
Well, it was after wasn't it after the buyout? At which point Disney.
Why do we always
Broke up.
just get Alien and Aliens content? It's the same thing, And I guess what my approach is it's a shame that the assembly cut won't be the mass version, right? That people consume if they say, "Hey, I'm going to check out Alien 3," without buying.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But I'm actually quite surprised. So when Adam and I interviewed Charles, it was because we wanted to talk about the creative. I was going to say creative assembly. Then no, that's a different thing. To talk about the assembly cut, because at least from my perception, there had been a lot more of positivity around Alien 3 because of that assembly cut. But as I've been doing, again, stealing your thing here, AJ, doing the 30 days for 30 years thing for Alien 3's anniversary, I'm so surprised at how much negativity is still there for the film. I thought we'd sort of moved past this point, but goddamn, no, we have not.
No.
There is so, in our little circle, it's Eric I'm used to shitting on the film, not everybody else.
I don't hate it. I just say that I was underwhelmed by it.
But no, there's still a lot of people who dislike the film. You know, I put out
Yeah.
social posts to say, what do you think of the film after all this time and all that kind of stuff.
You know what they're gonna say.
And to be fair, there's still a lot of people here who are reevaluating, not necessarily for the, you know, because of the assembly cut and everything. But you've got people here like, I hated this movie when I first saw it, but now I see where Fincher was going with it, and now I want to see his vision of it without studio interference. I borrowed a pirate video when it came out, and I hated it, but I was 13 and wasn't mature enough to get how good it actually was. Over the years, it's grown on me so much that it's my second favorite Alien film behind the original. I just love the utter nihilism of it, the whole thing. To be fair, actually, Twitter's relatively positive about it. But if we go on Facebook,
Dum dum dum.
Alien 3, die.
I mean,
You get that.
I mean, you know,
Okay.
all fandoms or fan bases or whatever the cold term it is with the kids nowadays, they're all toxic. Like
I wouldn't go as that
resonance
far.
chambers, all of it.
I think the
And-
toxic fandom is a little overblown. There is an element to it that does exist, unfortunately, but I think you also get the people that are like, well, that's just toxic fandom,
Yeah,
that are like
there'll be a
averse to any
vocal-
criticism of anything ever.
Yeah, it'll be a vocal minority. That's what you got to keep in mind.
Yeah,
You know what?
Yeah.
Actually, I lie, because a lot of
exactly.
a lot of the Facebook page is actually quite positive about the nihilism of it. And
It's your subconscious.
was it our group that was being negative about it? I'm sure I saw a lot more negativity towards it than I was expecting. And to be fair, I think you see a lot of that in the comments throughout the 30 days so
It
far
might
that
have
we've
been
done.
the early stuff did, like the immediate comments, but then if you wait for them to go on, there's more people that are give it more of an even.
Yeah, so maybe I'm talking bullshit, and people do actually appreciate it a lot more now.
I think the
but
fan
there's
base.
still a lot of
has-
people who don't.
I think the fan base has warmed up to it. You know, it's the
Yeah.
same problem I have with Predator 2. It seems like anyone outside the fan base, that's a little higher road to climb. But inside the fan base, you see, Aaron, how highly regarded it is now. You know, and I think within the Alien fan base too, with Alien 3, there's just a lot of people that have grown to appreciate it. You know, it still might be their third favorite film or their fourth favorite film, but they, you know, we all, I think, except for you, Aaron, improved our feelings, right? Since the initial time we saw it to, you know, what we feel about it now.
I think it's also important to keep in mind if the franchise had ended after Alien 3, there would be more dislike towards it. It's because since Alien 3,
Oh yeah, there
there's
you go.
had Alien Resurrection, which is largely regarded as overly comical. That made people look back at Alien 3 and they say, well, at least it wasn't Resurrection. And then
That
there's
was fun.
Prometheus and Covenant, and people say, well, at least Resurrection wasn't a prequel. Now, you're even getting people going, well, I really loved Requiem. And like 5 years ago, except for like Adam, you would hardly get anyone saying, I love Requiem.
I don't know. I think a lot of Predator fans used to quite like Requiem. I think
Yeah,
they
it's
still do.
more the Predator fan. But even they say, well, I love Wolf, but nothing else about it. But now there's a lot more people going, I loved it as a film. Whereas 5 years ago, they wouldn't. So as things go on, like even you get Colonial Marines, the game, and people say, oh, yeah, I love that. 5
Well,
years ago, no, you wouldn't
let's
say
be
that.
Things
fair.
are reevaluated in time.
Yeah.
Even Prometheus and even
Yeah.
Alien Covenant, with a lot of people, they suddenly look at those films and say, wow, maybe Alien 3 wasn't so bad, you know?
It's one of those things where you don't know what you have until you've lost it. People go back and they go, oh, yeah, actually, it's not as bad as I remember, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right, shall we wrap up then, gentlemen? I feel like that feels like a natural ending point.
Can I just speak about the Hicks and Newt thing that you did ask earlier? My feeling is that...
Oh, this was ages ago.
Yeah, but I never answered. I don't think it was necessary to kill them. But I do wonder... I know Michael Bean had his issues why he wouldn't return, but it would have been very interesting if instead of Bishop, the character who returned right at the end was Hicks, and if you didn't know what happened to Hicks and you, Ripley had crashed there alone, how would it have been if you go, is Hicks a synthetic or is that the actual Hicks? Because he would have had the emotional connection to Ripley.
I think
That
people
could
would
have
have
been
hated
very
that too,
interesting.
though. You know, I think people would have hated that. Hicks, they love Hicks.
Yeah,
Hicks
but there
was
was
really
still that ambiguity. Would that have been, how would that have changed Alien 3 if it had been Hicks showing up at the end? That could have been an interesting way to use Hicks instead of the let's just have him be a soldier sort of thing. There are interesting ways to use characters. It doesn't have to be in the expected way.
Well, to quote Ripley at the end of that movie, "You're crazy."
On that note, Aaron.
Shall we wrap up, boys?
We
Yes,
shall.
sir.
Okay.
Happy anniversary, Alien 3,
Yep.
30th.
Happy birthday.
anniversary.
Indeed. And thank you,
Beatrice
everybody, for
drowning his sorrows.
thank you, everybody, for listening or watching. Be sure to let us know your comments down in the comments section below. In particular, I am always curious to hear about as if people's opinions have changed over time. So do let us know. Very interested. David, do you want to tell people about Monster Legacy before we do ours?
If anyone is interested in, the creature effect side of the story, I have a couple articles on my website. And for the 30th anniversary of the movie this year, I'm going to expand them by the end of the month with new information like more story-related evolution, recordings, some things like that. And if I may say one last thing, my favorite line from the movie is in the assembly cut when Golek says cigarettes. That never fails to make me laugh heartily.
We were talking about that in a bit. That's probably going to got cut, but I use cigarettes so much. When we're playing Fireteam or anything, and we come across a loot box, I've got cigarettes. Or whenever I find anything in real life, nobody else knows what the fuck I'm on about. But yeah.
But you
just
never
think you're a
kicked
nicotine
a glass vending machine while you do it, right, Aaron?
No, I never quite go that far. Yeah. No. Adam, tell people about our socials and our links and all that crap.
So if you'd like to visit our website, you can do so at avpgalaxy.net, where we have all sorts of good stuff like the latest news, interviews, editorial pieces, and a discussion board on our forum. We're also on all the major socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you search AvP Galaxy or Alien vs. Predator Galaxy, you're sure to find us. If you'd like to follow me personally, it's at RidgeTop21 on both Twitter and Instagram. I'll be doing some photography for the anniversary of Alien 3 for us. Actually, we've been doing a thing where we do like commissioned artwork for significant anniversaries, and we have one coming up for Predator as well, which looks really awesome. I just saw the finished one of that. So, but I'll be doing one for Alien 3 myself, so I can't wait to show that to you guys.
He's always pimping at himself, is our Adam. he knows how to do this self-promotion. If you want to follow me personally on Twitter, I'm at _Corporal Hicks, and that's just nerdy ramblings and bullshit. AJ?
If you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at FN Voodoo Magic.
And David, do you have a personal one, or is it just...
Yes, I do. I am David Sword 426 on Instagram. Oh, no, it's 53 on Instagram, and I also have a Facebook page in the Twitter I never use. So
okay, well, we'll ignore that then.
And a lot of good galleries on Monster Legacy too.
Indeed.
Oh yes, I have like on monsterlegacy.net, which is my website I mentioned before. There's like a very extensive Alien 3 gallery and I also have them for like all the Alien movies. So if you guys wanna, burn an afternoon on it. Many people have, from what I know. So
it's a good way to spend some time reading about Alien. Right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been Corporal Hicks.
RidgeTop.
Voodoo Magic.
Xenomorphine.
Omegamorph.
Signing off.